Namaste, my friends. Namaste. Namaste connected. Namaste masked. Namaste 6 feet away. Or namaste 6 feet under. You choose. Yes, life is either choosing rest at home now or rest in peace tomorrow. Keep your mask on now or stay 6 feet away today so you don't have to be 6 feet under tomorrow. My friends, welcome to our pre-show. Please, as you are logging on, click share, share now with all of your friends for our very special episode 8, Reimagined Town Hall around the world, global check-in for one topic. Fitness works. Around the world for systemic racism. Maybe you think of that as Black Lives Matter. Maybe you think of that as anti-racism. Maybe you think of that in another way that in your country, racism needs to come to the head and forefront. Let's stay connected so we can all be together. I'm going to give you about 15 minutes of a pre-show before we are going to go around the world and start doing a lot of stuff. By way of starting, I'd like to say that today's a very special day. For episode 8, we have a less than 7-hour show. We have very international guests, and we have really nice ideas that the planets are telling us that they are coinciding more today ever. On today, we're going to have this conglomeration of planets unlike any other time, this alignment of global planets on today in July 5. And on today, we have exactly midpoint of half of 2020 behind us as half of 2020 in front of us. We have full moon. We have Guru International Day. Gu is light and Ru is non-light or night. Gu is someone who brings light towards otherwise where we have darkness or issues that we don't know. Tonight, we're going around the world, or whenever you're watching this morning, or whenever you're going around this world this afternoon, we're going around the world with gurus who will help us understand what it is to put our finger on the pulse of systemic racism based on how they see it where they are. My purpose is just to put us all together and understand that months ago when we began in March, we're almost at FitnessWorks for almost half a year, my friends. I decided that wherever we are in taking advantage of fitness services or offering fitness services, we have to hashtag stay relevant and stay fed. So we created a PSA and we came together to say, whatever you're doing, remember, it's not for free. And to the visionaries who were on board from the beginning for our PSA on camera and off camera, I thank you for making FitnessWorks so viable, because every instructor and personal trainer today knows about Zoom and Venmo and Stripe and Cash App based on some of the things that we've done in outreach. Thank you to Stacy McCarthy and Luciano Motola and Linda Shelton who gave us our hashtag of FitnessWorks. Jeffrey Howard, Manuel Velazquez, Steve Feinberg, Kelly Roberts, Jim Miller, Serafino Ambrosio, Zoraida Sepulveda, Josie Gardiner, Ben Seong, and Mark. It's incredible that Mark gave us so much support of Mark Fisher Fitness. Claire from California and Laughter Yoga, Noel Chalaya of the gym called The Lighthouse, the gym for people who don't like gyms, Kukua, and Yuri Rocket from Belarus, and Michael Piercy, who gave us lots of tips and tricks for our wording and moving forward. My purpose is this reinvented spin-off gives us inspiration on a single topic in a couple of ways. My guest, who knows so much more than I do, I like to say white boy stupid, but I can ask questions and I can build a platform that I've done over 5 months, and you are coming and sharing. which means, please, as a call to action, click share and share now so your friends and followers now or later will be connected with this very important global topic. As super, super timely as we talked about the 4th of July and independence in America, or interdependence among races and cultures and countries and continents, and things that we need to do to create this idea that we will create groundwork through heart work. And that's where we're going to connect together by the people who know so much more than I do, as it's full moon, alignment of planets, Guru Day and halfway through day, 2020 behind us, 2020 ahead of us. What a great time to pause on Fitnessworks Episode 8 and say, guess what? I want 2020 vision in my heart so that I can have 2020 vision in my eyes and ears, because I have 2 eyes and 2 ears, so I can look and listen twice as much as I have 1 tongue to speak, and then know the right things, maybe at the right time to say. That's cool, right? Now, by a caveat, let me say, as I've used my platform and opening up to platform as always, my guests may have a message that slightly differs from mine. My guests may have a vocabulary and way of delivering a message that slightly differs from mine. Be those things as they may, let me say, I may not agree with how you say, but I will die to the death defending your right to say your truth so you can teach when you come from a place of intention. Speak of intention, let me give you a little bit of caveat or intention of what I mean in my life. When you find Lawrence, I hope that you understand my intention is that the goods and products, services, and collaborations are inclusive and diverse and ethical, accepting and sincere in my invitation to collaborate. I've learned in my retreat realizations, this means hashtag, right? That sometimes intentions are not synonymous with your impressions. So no, while it is easy to judge anything socially and live, I invite us to remember that one of the most important questions we can ask is, Lawrence, how inclusively diverse was your invitation to collaborate on anything that you have made for a product, a service, a good, or a collaboration? For I can't make anyone check spam or say yes, or everyone say yes. With love in my heart and a firm commitment to spread wellness without walls, I'm Lawrence, with an intention that you find me with an open mind to be diverse and inclusive. Because inclusiveness and diversity and ethics and acceptance and sincerity are my core values. Mistakes? Sure. My box is a Zoom box. My life is a box. Therefore, my life has become a Zoom box. And when you're in a Zoom box, sure, you'll make mistakes. But I'm here to say that my desire to create a platform and build a community is greater than my fear of saying sorry, because I know that in my humanity, I will be here to make mistakes. So now it comes time for some calls to action. Please make a hashtag and say in your comments, I was here, watching from, and where you're watching from. Number 2, to get all of tonight's show emailed to you at no charge, you'll see the link in comments appear throughout the show. findlawrence.com/fitnessworks. And in addition to that, my friends, I really think it's important that you understand this, that in my calls to action, that I am inclusive. And if you have a website of something that you encourage us all to read or respond to or react to, please post it in the comments. One of the things that frustrates me is when people say, oh, I caught part of your show, I was seeing some of it, I was scrolling and I stopped by for a little bit, and I'll never know if you didn't tell me. because you didn't leave a footprint. You didn't put a comment. I don't care if it's a thumbs up or hashtag I was here. I read all thousands and thousands of comments and I check every single share. It's important to me because this and all of our messages for how we're connected on our planet to make the world a better place become super important to me. And with that said, I want to say that my desire is that we're all connected across countries and continents. For our first country and our first continent, we're going to start where it is a little bit later than it is on the East Coast. And we're going to cross the pond and start on an island. We're going to start in the UK. Where's that? We're going to go not far across the pond. Sure, it might not be easy to go there now for Americans. Sure, it might not be easy to go there because there might not be any flights. But a colleague, someone I esteem, whom I got very close on several occasions actually to work with, but have stayed in contact with, Mr. Lincoln Bryden, a mover and a shaker in our industry, coming to us from the UK. Mr. Lincoln, I see you. I'm gonna hear you. Welcome.
How you doing? Okay.
I am. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying up so late. Where are you specifically and what time is it?
So it is now 10:15 in England. I am about 45 minutes east of London. So yeah, and then tomorrow I have to go to my college because I'm a lecturer now. So I teach sport and exercise science. So yeah, so that's where I'm at.
Thank you for doing that. And I know you have a very early call tomorrow, and your time is precious and your time is wisdom.
Not at all. I'm really pleased to be here, and thank you so much for asking me.
I couldn't go anywhere and not ask you. Thank you for being with us. Lincoln, tell us, because of what we're watching on the news, from
Uh-huh.
statues to walking to activism to peaceful to unpeaceful protests with Black Lives Matter and other similar events, has any of this taken place where you are outside in public?
Yeah, there's been a lot of response in the UK. I think that I was speaking to a friend of mine a couple of days ago about this whole incident, and I think that the graphical image of what happens to the gentleman in America with the policeman kneeling on the neck for someone who is black, it's really difficult to convey that feeling of someone feeling that about another human being based on their color. And I think that invokes a lot of emotion in the UK and around the world. There's been a lot of peaceful protests. There's been a lot of, unfortunately, the aggressive militant sort of riots as well, which I feel has detracted from the overall message. But overall, I think the media has portrayed or decided to show that side rather than focus on the vast percentage of peaceful protests that have been going on in the UK. But yeah, it's definitely caused a huge reaction. The Premiership, the soccer teams, all of the soccer teams now are taking the knee in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. And it's caused a lot of discussion, which is, I think, is the huge plus point out of a tragedy situation.
Right. I was talking to our mutual friend, Tony Stone, who's also on watching with us now, and he was
Awesome.
saying we're discussing more now than ever. Where are
Yeah.
some of the platforms where you've seen this sort of cross profession talking? Where are people doing it?
I think it's mainly social media. I think if we look at some of the unfortunate incidents that have happened in the past, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, they're quite new platforms. So I think what's happened recently has happened where they're filming what's going on, they're posting images on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They're playing videos. People are having sometimes very heated discussions, but at least people are talking. I think that has to be a positive out of this situation.
Wonderful. On social media, is the news covering everything, would you say, in a informational, objective, which is really hard light, or do you think it's not so?
I think it's very much dependent on which news you watch.
Okay,
So I think each news channel, whether it's on TV, whether it's on the internet, whether it's newspapers, I think they have their own biases. And I think those
sure.
biases are showcased or being showcased through what's been happening.
Lincoln, in America, we have so many networks. In Canada, a choice as well. In the
Hmm.
UK, I remember there were like years ago, just a few networks. Are there more choices now for news when you say it depends where you're going? Or is
Yeah,
it still, I remember watching the Big Breakfast. That was the thing in the morning and the news, right? I
there you
loved
go.
my Big Breakfast. Where
Yeah.
do we go for options in the UK now
So
on
now
TV?
there's still BBC, there's ITV, there's Sky, there's various sort of independent channels, and again they do have their own agendas depending on which political platforms they want to support, whether it's the right, whether it's the left, or whether it's liberal. And I think that the key and the challenge amongst all of this is to choose either to have as wider a platform or as wider influence of knowledge as you can, or to be very careful where you select to get your information from.
Thank you for that. Before I ask you for some practical tips to help us understand maybe beginning steps for those of us who haven't been even realizing we have bias, what do
Hmm.
you think about what's going on politically out in the streets of where you are? It's pretty peaceful, it's a need. In America, you saw there was looting where windows
Yeah,
got broken in stores. What do you think about what's going on there?
I think what's happening in the UK or in the States.
Either one
In
that you'd want to speak to. I'm honored.
I think that personally, as I say, I think that it's great that dialogue has been opened. And what was nice seeing in terms of the peaceful protest is that it was a very younger demographic in the UK, and it was very mixed. Lots of people from a variety of races, colors, creeds, um, and that was really good. That was enlightening, and that was the plus point in allowing people to talk and communicate. And I don't personally, and again, I'm very careful not to say that I'm speaking for all black people in the UK, but personally, yes, there's been statues that have been pulled down in the UK. Again, I'm very conscious. I don't want that to detract from the main topic, and that is, dealing with, bias, dealing with systemic racism. That's the important topic. And for me, there was a very well read and well respected black philosopher in the UK, and he was suggesting that the pulling down of the statues is kind of, you could argue, sweeping certain actions under the carpet and kind of detracting from what actually has happened. And
Right.
I kind of subscribe to that. I think that the greater story, if we fast forward in 100 years' time, I personally want people to say, well, this is what happened at a certain point in time. People reacted to that, what happened in a certain point in time, and now look at all of the successful, people of color that are, being president, that have forged ahead and created such good things in the world. I mean, that's just my personal opinion.
Of
Um,
course.
but the major aspect of this is that we must focus on the opportunity that this has presented itself to us, which is this dialogue that can take place.
Thank you for that. I appreciate. My priest made a post this morning, not part of Mass, but
Hmm.
just as part of his not 4th of July independence, but 4th of July interdependence
Right.
about statues as possibly detracting from the real important issues. He said, whatever you're going to say, you can defend anything. Like people use the Bible depending on interpretation and extraction to
Hmm.
almost justify everything. He said, you can talk to a statue or a marble, but it's not about working with a heart and a promotion and equality and diversity and inclusion and changing laws. Let's focus on the people who are alive, not the statues that are dead, in terms of making change. And I thought, like you're saying, it's important to keep our eyes on moving forward on the changes we can make involving people first.
Yeah, and then I mean, I've come from a sporting background, and I'm very much a fan of, you can only you can control what you can control.
Right.
And an inanimate object, which a statue is, isn't going to affect or control how I carry about my day and how I choose to influence my day. And that, again, that's just my personal point of view.
I hear you.
But I think that there's far more opportunity that's being presented to us that should allow for positive discussion to take place.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Could you give us, for those of us wanting to make positive starts, no pressure because you're the first one of our show, an initiative or a tip or a suggestion in our personal lives, before we talk
Hmm.
about fitness professional lives,
Yep.
just in our personal lives, to be less stuck or more inclusive and diverse?
I think in my job as a teacher, so we have to do a lot of staff training. And one of the staff trainings that we've had to do is unconscious bias. And it's a, you can do it's called an implicit association test. I don't know if you've come across that.
No, I hope we're
Um,
writing that in our
yeah,
comments.
okay.
Unconscious bias. And
Yeah,
what's the
so
name of the test?
implicit association test, IAT. It's an app you can download as well. And as
There's an
part
app
of
for
the,
that.
yeah, and the part and the start of this test to show, how unconscious bias can be applied to all of us. There's a scenario from 1962 where, and it says which famous celebrity, when they were about to board a plane, um, refused to board the plane because they found out that the pilot was black. And then there was a list of celebrities, and it was Audrey Hepburn, Marilyn Monroe, Nelson Mandela, and I think there was one other. And so the answer was Nelson Mandela. So Nelson Mandela actually refused to board the plane in 1962 because he found out that the pilot was black and it was in South Africa. And then it goes on to say that actually, once he sat down and reflected on his actions, he realized that he had, to a certain degree, a certain amount of unconscious bias.
You think?
Yeah, you think, but then he was, obviously the wonderful person that he was able to reflect on that, and it was brought out into the conscious, and then he was able to act and obviously lead the wonderful life that he did lead. And so for me, I think that that's where we need to start, and I've taken,
Unconscious bias and this app. Thank you for a
yeah,
great practical
no
takeaway
worries.
for our personal life. For our professional fitness life, you program conventions, you're a
Yeah,
presenter, you're an
yeah.
international traveler, you're a teacher, you're a humanitarian. You don't
Hmm.
have to just give us one, but can you give us one initiative or tip or suggestion of how we can make our fitness world, our professional fitness world, more inclusive?
I was thinking about this actually, and I think,
I hope so.
yeah, there needs to be more of a black representation in terms
Thank
of
you.
presenters. And this is going to be controversial, not the stereotypical disciplines. Yeah. So we've got some amazing dance presenters, and they are amazing. They are amazing. But I think there needs to be more of a showcase of the black educators. You can't tell me there's not black educators, lecturers that can influence and talk about marketing, talk about business, talk about social media, talk about all the other aspects of fitness, that are showcased at the conventions. And I think again it goes, look at the positive aspect that the Williams sisters had with tennis, Tiger Woods with golf. You know, we need to see more black people in the groundbreaking type activities, not the stereotypical activities. Um,
I love this because we're always booked as presenters
yeah,
based on stereotypes, and
yeah,
stereotypes go to bias. Bias is racism.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And so until that happens, and again, so what, as an organizer, I mean, I don't, I've stepped back from the organizing now, but I know you were involved with IDEA for a while. As an organizer, I think almost there needs to be that active recruitment of, and don't get me wrong, if they have to be good enough
Of
to
course.
do the job, but I 100% believe that there are educators in the world of fitness that can stand in front of an audience and educate and inspire and motivate, and that needs to be seen. And that, in the time that I've been presenting, which is nearly 30 years, it's still a minority, and that has to change,
Right.
especially in this day and age.
Thank you, Lincoln. I appreciate you. What a great way to start out because I have so many notes already that I know I'll be taking from the comments our viewers are making. Viewers, make sure you're clicking share and share now because this is wisdom for your employers, for your colleagues, and the people who are paying your salaries. You gotta spread this because we've
Yeah.
got to grow. Lincoln, I think that there are two questions that I've heard a lot lately.
Hmm.
Number one, from big and small box conventions, we just don't get a lot of applications from Black people. And number two, my question is, why are we not making our application process seem more, whether that's true or not, seem more open and possible and inviting to people of all diversities and to be inclusive and colors for Black people to even think they have a chance is just as an important question as saying,
Yeah.
well, we don't get a lot of Asian applications. Well, we do at AFC, at Asia Fitness Convention,
Hmm.
but maybe not a lot of Blacks who want to go to Thailand for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear the excuses, and I don't get involved in contractual negotiations ever. I just say, here's my dream list.
Yeah.
And I try to make sure that my dream list is the best person for the right thing. And it's not always the obvious. It's not always that the Black person will do dance or the Hispanic will teach samba and salsa.
Exactly.
I love your message. And so, in your conventions that you've done,
Hmm.
how do you make it possible, besides going after people, to feel like they have a chance to apply? Because
Well,
you
I
have a
was,
great track record, first of all. You've
yeah,
always
yeah.
had super diverse in Blackpool.
Yeah, so I was kind of like the headhunter in terms of approaching people. I do think the application process is very important. Um, are you still involved with idea? I don't want to say anything out of turn, but I think the application process is just is it was this is years ago when I was applying. It was just too much. At the
Right.
end of the day, you're getting up on stage, you're inspiring, and you're delivering a message. And I mean, as an educator, as a teacher, I just found the application process just too much, even though I went through it because I wanted to have that experience. So I think if not but if the organizers want to make it welcoming, they need to have an application process that people feel, you know what, I can actually do that. Now, that's
Right.
not saying that Black presenters
Right.
can't, but
Right.
I think there's a headhunting aspect. There's because as you say, some presenters may not feel that that's the platform for them. And again, from
In honor of your time, can I keep you for just 5 more minutes?
yeah, of course you can.
For anybody,
Yeah.
thank you. I love when Brits say that. Of course you can. Can I
Yeah.
have some egg whites instead of instead of scrambled eggs? Of course you can. Americans are like, well, no substitutions on the menu.
No, definitely. I mean,
Lincoln, as an example of that, I remember in New York City when I went to 63rd Street Equinox, where
mhm,
Calvin Wiley was teaching, and it was dance and then standing sculpt. And I thought,
okay.
well, I'm not going to go into the dance. I had friends in there, and I sat outside in the lobby thinking, white boy, no rhythm. Even though I taught step, as you know, it's up and down,
Yeah,
left and
yeah,
right, and if you can't get that, then something might be wrong. But I didn't want to go to his dance class, and I watched it, and I thought, well, I could attempt that. When I saw that he was teaching standing sculpt, I thought, I don't have to worry about rhythm and
yeah,
moves and Rihanna and all this kind of funk that everybody was doing, and then
yeah,
divide the boys and the girls and have to have some kind of dance background because, as you know, he's standing room only, and you
hmm
gotta reserve and you gotta wait for him to walk in and an entrance. And I know he's watching. I loved and I felt so comfortable that I was able to take Calvin Wiley in a non-traditional discipline. And
There
he's
you go.
just as well versed
Yep.
in the standing sculpt. And we had body bars, and we were sticking those body bars where I had never stuck it before, and we were
Mm.
toning this and strengthening that and moving this. And I thought, this makes me feel successful. All the charm, all the music, all the choreography, all the sass, all the production, all the education and entertainment, edutainment that makes
Mhm.
Calvin Wiley, but it was a non-traditional associated with him and his dance troupe of Calvinography and dance. And conventions need to realize that you are so diverse.
Yeah, and also I'd add to that with people like Calvin and Tony is that once people actually know them, yes, obviously they're great dancers, but they're great people as well. And as you know, you organize an event, they are a convention's dream in terms of, yes, they deliver their product, but then they go out, they talk to the clients, they remember the members, they are a dream. And I think that's the important thing, that people need to acknowledge that Black people and Hispanic and Asians can we're multidisciplined. And I think that needs to be encouraged, whether that's encouraged and it's probably going to need a couple of groundbreaking presenters to showcase certain disciplines so that other presenters can look and say, oh, right, okay, well, I can do that. And then that will start the application process again. But I definitely think that the application process, it all starts from there. And I suppose it starts from, getting that message out there and, challenging the unconscious bias. It'll be interesting if I'm picking on idea here because I know you're in the States, but, it'll be interesting if the staff did the implicit association test and see what comes out. So I think that'll be very surprising.
I'm fascinated by your comments, which are really timely, and I'm not liberty to say anything publicly except to your topic. Watch the news in the coming days
Okay.
about the organizations you've been mentioning.
Right. Okay. I will watch this space.
I don't know about MySpace because I'm not losing my whatever
Okay.
credibility this bucket of crazy has left in the world after shows like this. I just want to say that there's a lot of news to be told, and I've been told something in confidence and in a preferential courtesy of professional ethics. And when the news goes big, you'll be like, "Oh my gosh, that's so fascinating. We were talking about this, and
Right.
it was so
Okay.
timely for news to be that." Yeah. Any final comments that you want to leave us with, Mr. Lincoln? Because you're so wise and you've been doing this for years, and
Yeah.
you're in the UK, which has same as the agency, same but different. Maybe
Yeah.
some wisdom for the West to think about. You're still in the West, but Americans
Yeah.
and Canadians.
Yeah. I think from my point of view, again, can only speak for me. We have to be open for dialogue, and a dialogue that's a win-win dialogue. And what I mean by that is if we have an exchange, that both people come away from that exchange feeling that they've won. If you have an opinion and I shout you down just to get my point, then yes, I've won, but you've lost.
Right.
If I give you my opinion and you say that, Lincoln, that's rubbish, or you laugh in my face, I've lost and you've won. Okay, and so what's the point? Whereas if we can have an open exchange like this, and then we can challenge our opinions in a safe manner, and then we can both leave the conversation in a positive light, then I think that's where change will happen. That's my opinion.
I am very grateful for that reach out. You constantly said, "This is just mine, and I'm just
Mhm.
speaking for me." You know what? I can't say anything you've said is controversial, and it keeps reaffirming what I need to do to move forward in from UK, where you've given us your wisdom. We're going to hop up to Canada across the pond, where there's a couple queens on a couple different of their money, right? So that's my thematic tie. I wish you
Nice.
a wonderful night.
No
I
problem.
thank you for the present of your wisdom with us to show how fitness works more diversely and inclusively as a need forever. Thank you for your comments about
Absolute
statues.
pleasure.
Thank you for telling us about that conscious and unconscious bias. I have my homework to do, including apps. Anybody that tells me about apps, I am so up in that because I appreciate that. I really appreciate you. Thank you. I wish
No
you a
worries.
good night. Let's
Thank you.
stay closer in contact than we have before. I
Yes,
have
please.
loved and admired you for a long time from afar, but now let me say that I love and admire you from up close.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, Lawrence. Yeah, and I
Bye,
think what you're
Lincoln.
doing is brilliant. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye bye. Okay. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Okay, my friends, we're going to go to Canada. And before we do, I'd just like to make you a few calls to action as we look at my maple leaf and get ready up to go with someone whose initials are SS. That's kind of funny, right? SS. like smart and sexy. We are going to go to Canada, and if you're just joining us, please hashtag I was here watching from, so I know when I'm reading every single one of your comments. Those of you know, from 1,000 comments to 2 to 3, up to your views and shares, I interact tomorrow with each and every one of you. I like to know where you're watching from, even that you drop by for a second to get the whole show to share with your colleagues who need to know and hear our message, as well as your fitness consumers that are paying our salaries. Please findlawrence.com/fitnessworks. No charge. You get this show and all episodes as well. And please remember to type in any websites that you have found through all of this, particularly a value for us to learn what we need to share with each other, because we teach what we need to learn and learn what we need to teach. From Canada, Mr. Steven, you gotta follow this guy on TikTok. Let me tell you, when he speaks, you gotta listen. Mr. Steven, hello.
Hello, everybody. Let me just get some light here going for you.
No worries. It's okay. I'm happy to hear you. I wasn't going to say you're a little dark because I don't want to get even more hate mail.
No worries. That was just the lighting issue, everybody. That's a lighting issue. Thank you for doing this, first of all. Thanks for having me.
You're so kind to jump on. I really am. I'm full of gratitude. Where are we finding you and what time is it, Stephen?
It is in Toronto, Canada. It's about, let's see, 5:45 or 5, not sure exactly the time, but in the evening.
Thank you very much for that. As we all are aware of what's going on in the news, unless we live under a rock or have no TV, I live on a rock and I have no TV, but I have internet. What's going on in terms of the last couple of weeks and out in public, from riots to peaceful walks to everything in between to statues? Can you just give us a little bit of the meter of what we're seeing where you are near?
Well, in Toronto, much like the bigger cities in the world, we've had peaceful protests. And throughout Canada, even in some of the smaller cities, there have been many peaceful protests, a lot of discussions, a lot of programming on TV, on the networks here with regards to the movement. As well with regard to the statues, that has, not to my knowledge, also always remember, I'm just speaking from what I've been reading and finding out about.
Sure.
Is the statue thing has just come into play here in terms of people analyzing and discussing street names and statues and things, and finding more history out about who was named after who the street signs named after, who the statues named after, what role they actually did play in history. Because sometimes we're just blissfully unaware about a street you live on or a statue you've walked by for years of your life.
Right. One of the things I tell my mentees in anything we do in fitness, everything speaks. So what I'm hearing you saying is we're starting to question because everything speaks. I think it sounds like a pretty sensible thing, right? What do you think about what's going on out there? It sounds to me that there hasn't been a lot of unrest and looting like we saw on Madison Avenue in New York City. Pretty peaceful?
It has been very peaceful up here. I don't believe we've had many looting issues up here, fortunately. Not that saying that looting is a bad thing. When you look at the whole context of it, and I mean, that's a bigger discussion. But we've had a lot of peaceful protests here, and I'm on board with the messaging of being a person of color. This is something I've been ingrained in terms of creating a movement within my own little fitness sphere in Canada and in Toronto, the way I see I can maybe enact some change. So for me, it's not a new thing, but it's now good to see more people becoming aware and wanting to get involved, or even wanting to learn.
Right. Thank you for saying that you are creating some messages and living your messages. I don't think it's maybe, though. You said maybe I can speak to. I'm listening. And that's one of the reasons why I think I've spent over 5 months building a platform. So when it's really important, the teaser is for everyone listening, platforms evolve. And my teaser is, if this is a reimagining of a 7-hour Fitness Works, imagine what the next episode is going to be in 2 weeks. Stephen, can you share with those of us watching a tip or a suggestion or an inspiration towards systemic racism elimination for our personal lives first?
I think sometimes people get their guard up when people say I was offended. So and the conversation becomes, that wasn't my intent. Sometimes people apologize and say that was not my intent. I think as we go through the process, we realize it's not about what our intention was. If one person is offended in one of my group exercise classes, that is way too many. And I need to understand why that person was offended and learn from that myself. rather than bringing it back to when someone says that was not my intent, you're taking the importance away from the person being offended and bringing the importance to that was not your intent. So if we step out of the bubble, out of being challenged because maybe someone thinks that's exactly, we were trying to offend them, versus just learning why that might have been offensive to them.
Just a dialogue.
So sometimes, yeah, it's just a dialogue, and being opening to understanding that.
And for those of us that want to then branch into our topic tonight, the fitness industry, can you give us a tip or two on how we can reduce systemic racism in the fitness industry? I know you've got some ideas.
Well, I think sometimes we need to, some organizations, you'll look at their instructors, there's not much diversity in some big box gyms or some smaller gyms. And if your intention is to have diversity and representation in your instructors, in your trainers, in your members, you need to be active in how you search out those people. For example, let's say I'm speaking from Toronto. So say you would like to have more Indigenous people represented in your community. Maybe you need to figure out how to reach out specifically to those people, because there's fitness superstars in the Indigenous community. Definitely, there has to be. So the onus is on the facility owner, the person who's hiring people, to learn how to reach out. And this is one other thing, being open to learning how to reach these people so they become part of your community. If your intention is to have lots of representation, then maybe the same old, the way you hired people or ran your gym or ran your facility will work. That system will no longer work.
Correct, because you were mentioning when we look at a traditional facility, big or small box, we want to look for diversity. In kindergarten speak, and this is not being condescending to you, but because I'm stupid. In kindergarten speak, what are 2 or 3 things we can look at to see if that place is diverse? The first thing I think is the posters around. We want to make sure everyone's not Chinese, or everyone's not Asian, or everyone's not Black, or everyone's not the same race. Anything else?
Correct.
Put in your definition of diversity in the club.
So definitely, to echo your point about representation. So I had a recent incident, where I had the opportunity to work at a facility, and one of my hesitations was because there was all their representation of all their advertising and marketing was one look. There was no diversity and that's something I'm very sensitive to in general, but also being a person of color. That gave me some insight into the clientele at that place, the kind of instructors at that place.
Thank you.
So
that's a wonderful tip for us to be able to take away. Look at our facility where we are affiliated or are thinking about going back to, now that many of us are going back to what we knew before and now it's reimagined, or looking for new work in a real redesigned, reimagined world as well.
And sometimes, I know I don't have much time, but it's actively doing these things. It's not just hoping they'll happen. We all need to put the work in to make it happen, because it's new learning for everybody, and it's fair that it's going to be challenging, but it's a learning process, which if you want it to work, you have to adopt. And there'll be bumps along the way, of course, but as long as you're adopting the fact that it's a new learning process and embracing that, hopefully you'll be able to get to what your goals are.
Right. I say I'm just full of curiosity and compassion, and I'm looking towards guidance from people of African descent. And that doesn't mean it's your job to teach me. If you got some tips, though, I need to learn, because clearly our history doesn't show that we got it figured out. Therefore, like my friend Roberto, watching from New York City, who's not in the fitness industry, always says, let me know how that's working out for you. Because so far our track record as white supremacists, where that exists, is not working so well. So thank you for giving us some very practical takeaways, Stephen. I appreciate you jumping on a holiday weekend. The present of your wisdom is full, leaving us heart and eyes and ears just with some takeaway steps. And I'm very, very grateful.
Thank you for doing this. And I wish you well for the rest of the show.
Thank you very much. Stay around if you want to. You're welcome. I appreciate you. Thank you,
welcome.
Stephen.
Take care, everybody.
Bye. All right, my friends, we started in the UK, and then we went all the way to Canada, and now we're going on our Interdependence Weekend, the US of A, to our nation's capital. No pressure at all. right? Guess what? If you're just joining us, please put hashtag I was here watching from and let us know where you're watching from. Number two, you will see in your comments how you can get tonight's full episode to share with everyone in your world. Fitness works for free. All you have to do is go to the link that you'll see in comments. And number three, please remember that we're sharing ideas and inspiration across countries and continents. So when you have something that's going to help us grow in terms of decreasing racism, please feel free to post where you're getting your inspiration from. Books, comments, webinars, and websites. Now, my friends, we're going to go to the United States Capitol, someone I've met 100 years ago. We've collaborated for many companies, which are AFA and NASM. Mr. Jay Guillory, I haven't seen you in a long time, but we've spoken. Hi.
What's up, Lawrence? How are you?
I am very honored and ecstatic that you are with us. And I have to do the Winnie the Pooh thing and look away from my camera for a second. Hi. It's been a long time. It's been a long time. It's so good to see you. I remember doing so many primary certifications. How many people in the world are certified because of you? And a far smaller number are certified because you and I actually collaborated on some live events together. Where are we finding you and what time is it for our viewers?
I live in Maryland and right outside of DC, and it is 5:48 p.m.
Okay. And can you tell me what's going on there from Maryland all the way to our nation's capital, which is not very far away, with the whole Black Lives Matter movement, both what happened or what is happening out in public from the peaceful to the protesting, and also about statues, maybe just a little summary of if you were in one of those hotbed areas or very quiet areas?
I'm in a quiet area, but it doesn't take much to get to the hotbed area. So I think the Black Lives Matter Plaza, where they painted Black Lives Matter on the street, there's always something going on there. They have small protests, they have small gatherings with people. Like people will have their children there giving speeches and stuff like that. So it's calmed down a lot. It's calmed down a lot. I've only been out there once, so it's we're still under strict quarantine and all this other stuff. So.
Okay. And what do you think about everything that happened in your area, the way it happened?
Well, that's the thing. I moved here right in the midst of this whole thing. Like I moved here the 23rd of March. So it was right when everything shut down. Like I was in the midst of everything. So I can't really gauge that because I wasn't really here before all the stuff started happening. Since I've been here, I've been working from home.
Okay. Tell me what you think as we're looking at diminishing and eradicating systemic racism, a tip or a suggestion that I can take into my personal life to start with me in a positive step.
I would have to say, personally, there are three things that you have to do.
Okay.
Figure out where you get your internal biases from. Number one.
Thank you for saying that, and not if you have internal biases. We all have them. Where you get your internal biases. Thank you, Jay.
Where they come from, why you have them, and what triggers them.
So source, reason, and triggers. I hope my friends watching, like Janie Watkins in Alabama, are writing these down in comments because we need everyone to share, and sometimes we learn visually. Those are great. Would you like to explain them a little bit more, Jay?
So I think why you have them, like, is it something that you're accustomed to in your group of friends or in your family? Like, where did this thing stem from? Like, why is it an innate response for someone to clutch their purse or someone to move away from a person of color if you're standing in the elevator together? Like, why do you innately do that? And I think those are the things that you have to kind of realize first. But what I think is even more important is the fact that once you realize why you have them, where they come from, and what triggers them, you have to develop a plan of action to offset the triggers with a more positive action.
Can I have one specific example? You had me at clutch my purse, but when I'm in an elevator or doing something else, to open my mind to realize everything. That's what your 3 steps do, and brilliant for you. Kudos to that, because we all have our biases. What's an example of then how I make a change to maybe diminish, eradicate that?
The simplest thing, start a conversation. Introduce yourself, say hello, because once you do that, you allow the other person to know that you acknowledge them for who they are as a human being. So all you have to do is just start a conversation, or find something about the person that you can make a compliment on. Well, I like your hairstyle. I like the shirt you have on, or something like that, because that in itself will kind of ease the tension of why you initially had this coil effect to not being open to speaking to somebody. Yes.
Jay, I really like the fact that the check on your jacket matches the check on your shirt.
Stop it.
I like what you're saying. I'm full of curiosity and compassion, and communication is the C I want to add that I'm getting from you. Initiate. You don't have to wait for somebody to make eye contact or look away. It's always nice to initiate conversation, and it has to be sincere. Not how are you as the doors open and you're leaving, because what if the person says, well, I just buried my mother or signed my divorce papers, and you're out the door. Like, do you really care? I think it's important to be sincere in our question. Thank you for those practical tips for my personal life. Now, this is why we're here. In my professional fitness life, and you're a veteran in our industry, you've written tests, you've given tests, you serve on boards, the YouTube channel is a buzz for alpha because of you. What's a practical tip, suggestion, or takeaway that all our viewers can start today to decrease systemic racism for our fitness professional life?
I think one of the things, especially since social media is like the thing to do now, I know a friend of mine, Jen Hall. Jen Hall does this quite often on her page, and I think it's the most amazing thing is she picks an instructor that she wants to highlight on her page, and she writes a huge blurb of them, and she puts it on her page, and it just goes out into the universe, because a lot of the people that she's doing, I never heard of. So I think if we each do that, whether you're an instructor, whether you're a presenter, or whether you're a brand ambassador, if you started doing things like that, especially highlighting your friends of color who are capable and who are qualified, that right there is what it's how the privilege that you have can be used to help elevate others. Another thing I know, I heard Lincoln mention something like this before, is when you own the convention, or you own the certification organization, or you own, a lot of the reasons why you don't get Black applicants is because through your marketing, we've already realized that you don't want us there. So we don't apply. There's no reason for us to. So as the owner, I feel like, how about you just reach out to people? Because that's the olive branch. Because I can assure you, most of us are not going to apply, because we've seen your marketing, we've seen your audience, we know that you don't really want us for that. So I think those are two big ways to be able to do it. I think it's okay for people to initiate. It's okay if you notice that in the applications that you don't have this particular thing, or you don't have these, it's okay to initiate. We're a community, so we have a lot of resources. Text a friend, ask one of your friends, hey, it's easy to kind of say, Lawrence, do you know anyone who is a subject matter expert in this particular area that we can help get this textbook written? Because those are the ways that you kind of use privilege to help elevate others.
Yeah, I'd show you the textbook we just wrote, but my laptop and camera are right on it. But it was a privilege to collaborate with you on the current new Alpha Group Fitness industry standard textbook. Yeah, there's a plug for Alpha, and it was great to collaborate on that with you. Yes. When we are going to make referrals, make sure, here's a takeaway from you. And by the way, your takeaways are going nuts on our Facebook chat thread, Mr. J.
Really?
Thank you. Yes, people are loving your 3 takeaways for our personal life. And yes, it may be that conventions don't get a lot of Blacks that apply, but maybe there's a reason why. And I've always been, Jay, a connector when I will help program for AFC or Asia Fitness Convention. And Tony Stone, Calvin Wiley, Michael Piercy can speak to this. I don't get involved in contract negotiations. I say, if I have a dream team, these people
These
I
are the
would have
people.
on my dream team. And then what they work out, Calvin Wiley's not inexpensive. I don't get involved in that. My question
Right.
is what's on my dream team? And it's not just Calvin Wiley for dance, it's Calvin Wiley for standing sculpt too, you know, as we were talking
Absolutely.
about with Lincoln, because
Absolutely.
the best laid movers and shakers have not always to do with where they're born or what their race is or what they come from, but that's our stereotype often. Well, this
Right.
one can do this and that one can do that. I've had some great white-skinned movers and shakers in my day, and I've met some people that couldn't find an 8 count in our Black community, as you can speak to too for AFA. Let's super candid over the years,
Let
right?
us please.
To teach 300, 400 people
Like
at a time.
what are you what are you hearing? What are you hear? Like I'm not understanding what you're hearing.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. Unfortunately, I've been in a situation when I had a very well-known white presenter say, doing an event like that, well, with where you're from, how come you can't find the beat? That's another story, right? That's racist then.
Well, see, and I think the bigger picture is it's the microaggressions. It's the lack of knowledge of knowing that you're telling somebody something that is like, and a lot of the times we don't like, for me personally, I don't ever have an inclination to respond immediately because I'm going to say the wrong damn thing. But my initial thought is always, did this bitch just say that? Like you kind of think to yourself. So yeah, so
right.
I think for people to be cognizant of the microaggressions, the things like, but Jay, you're not like one of them. Like who is one of them?
Well, I could talk a lot about that, about you and your journey over a while, but I'll do the zipper, as we say in Greece. But I will say this, Jay, 2 things you've just said that really stand out to me. Number one, I love that you said you'll make mistakes. So even knowing that a Black person trying to give me some wisdom is already saying, you know, I might not say it exactly the right way. It makes me feel more relaxed than man,
Absolutely.
am I stupid and I'm just doomed from the start from asking, can we communicate? And number 2, that you use the B word.
Because Lawrence, let me tell you, when someone tells you, but Jay, you speak so well for a Black guy, the only word that's going to come out of my mouth is, did this bitch just say that? Like, because like, and no, let me tell you, and it happened during a filming of an educational video that I was doing. They stopped the camera so this person could walk up to me like, oh my God, you speak so well. And I was just like, are you kidding me?
And you speak so unintelligently for a white person, and that just doesn't feed anything appropriately. Thank you for that story. As I prepare you for your final comments, any other stories like that you'd want to share with us that we could grow from or laugh at or both?
Oh, well, I'll tell you, I was filming a video one time and I was directed to the dressing room that I was going to. And the comment after that by the producer of the video was, oh, because that's the room we let the Black people use.
In our lifetime.
Yes.
Thank you for telling that story.
It was like in
I am
2000.
so offended. We will discuss it tomorrow because I probably could guess it, right?
I'm sure you could.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm just horrified, but that's what we do. When we get together and we talk with love, we tell stories that people need to hear. Thank you for the gift of your wisdom, because I hope that you know we are much wiser right now than 15 minutes ago, Jay. You brought us love and light from the nation's capital, and I hope that's not offensive when I say love and light, because I'm very cognizant of all my word choices now. Love, you brought us wellness and wisdom. And thank you for the present of your wisdom with us, and for on a holiday weekend helping us understand that when we have an open mind through compassion, we can keep communicating. Thank you, Jimmy.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Bye. I'm so glad you were with us. We're so blessed. Jay Guillory, my friends, on Facebook, but maybe not on Instagram, right?
Yes, the real JG.
Oh, well, who knew? I still can't find you. The real J letter
A-I,
J-A-Y.
J-A-I-G-E-E. The real JG.
You are a nutcase for consistency, but I still love you nonetheless. Bye.
Bye.
All right, my friends, we're saying goodbye to the US, nation's capital. We're going to go up to Canada. And as we go for our Maple Leaf, boom, how international are we on our United Nations of Fitness Around the World Global Town Hall? Episode 8, single topic, you're the most important person. I'm the most important person. We're making not his story or her story. We're making our story. Making changes on 2020. Today, July 5, the official day, full moon. The planets line up more than any other day this year, and it's officially the day when half of our year is behind us, and we have just as much ahead of us to make positive change, which starts in our thoughts, and then our words, and then our actions, and then our habits. Yes? If you're just joining us, please make a comment so I know you were here. Hashtag I was here watching from. And to get the whole show, watch the comments. I'll show you why you get the whole show for free. And make comments on what you're thinking of our speakers, as well as where you're going to learn new ways to brush up on this topic and what we don't know. We're going to now, in Canada, speak to Dion Mason, who is part of our episodes around the world. We're going back to Canada with Dion. Dion, hello. Good afternoon, good evening, happy 4th weekend, and how are you?
I am fantastic. Can you hear me okay, Lawrence?
We can hear you just beautifully, and I love your avatar. I'd love to see you.
Yes, let me just make sure that you can see my video. There we go.
You.
All right.
Hi. What does it say behind you?
Oh, okay. It says here, let me see if I can scooch over. Silence in the face of injustice is complicity with the oppressor. Beautiful. So I thought it would be a great timely statement that it's important for us to understand that there is really no neutrality when we're talking about racism and systemic racism, that we really have to choose whether we want to work towards solutions or complicity really is not helping the issue. I like to kind of think about, so I'm jumping ahead, but it's just like with a disease, you have to either do something about it. If you don't do anything about it, it's going to get worse.
Thank you. Where are we finding you and what time is it?
So I'm from Toronto, Ontario right now, but the time right now is 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So
thank you. I won't ask you about the political things that have happened in public over the last couple of weeks, because we had Stephen, your friend and colleague, super versatile guy, got to follow him on TikTok. Tell us a little bit about what had been going on. Is there any, I don't want to take away that question from you, but I know you have other things to say. Anything you wanted to add about the political climate?
Well, I think it's interesting in Canada, we're known as a very polite people. And people often refer to Canadians as very polite, sometimes not friendly, in the sense that we won't necessarily go up to you to express our love and gratitude, but we won't necessarily be very rude. So we tend to be very polite. And that also bleeds into issues of racism, that people aren't necessarily going to be burning a cross or using the N-word or blatantly always expressing their intentional or unintentional discriminatory practices, but we tend to be a little bit more subtle, when it comes to things. So by all means, I'm sure to add to what Stephen said, there have been certainly unrest here after George Floyd. We've had a number of situations where there have been failed police encounters. And there has been, this is not new, unfortunately, this has been going on for some time. But, I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to see some more positive changes moving forward.
Okay, with what happened politically outside, before we go to takeaways for all of us to learn, because you are super awesome at giving away your time. You've been into some of my mentoring groups, you've been dropping by my Facebook Lives, and you've been giving such great practicals. I remember Bernadette O'Brien said, I got 6 pages of notes and she spoke for 7 minutes. That's pretty good ratio for someone 90 years young and certified who's been around the block to learn from you, which is awesome, which is 1/8, 9th, 10th of her age. Good for you. Dion, what do you think about what's been happening out there in politics? Yes, Canadians are reserved and polite. What's your general take on that?
Well, when I look at the overall climate right now, one thing when I think about systemic racism, I think what tends to happen is that we don't always take a look at the actual meaning of it. Racism is a very ugly word. And I'm going to quote Dr. Robin D'Angelo, who wrote the book White Fragility, is that oftentimes when we look at the mainstream definition of racism, it tends to paint a very ugly picture at the worst common denominator. We think of neo-Nazis, we think of burning crosses, and we don't look at the actual definition of it. And the best definition and the simplest definition out there is really prejudice plus power. So we all have prejudices and biases. It's just inevitable because of the way that we're educated. We're educated through the perspective of white eyes only. I mean, our textbooks in schools are written by white people. Our environments are segregated. So we only tend to have a very limited worldview based on just how we're educated, where we live. So it's inevitable that we're going to have assumptions and biases that come out that we not necessarily intentionally mean to happen, but they happen just because of our environment. I mean, even I'm sure right now in Puerto Rico that you're enjoying Puerto Rico, you're surrounded by Puerto Rican music and Latin music, and Latin food. So that surrounding is going to have an impact on your perspective. And imagine having one perspective your entire life. Naturally, you're going to have certain biases and prejudices that come. Now, when it comes to racism, it's when a group of people who have a combined perspective of certain prejudices and biases assign power to that. And I think it's important that in order for us to see where we are today, we really have to take a look at our past. Not that we want to dwell in the past, but it's just like with any disease, like with cancer. We can't figure out a cure unless we figure out, well, how do we get it in the first place? How do we prevent it from continuing to happen? And then how do we look for a cure for that? So I kind of look at, when it comes to racism, in the same light that I would look at like a cure for cancer. So when we look at, for example, the background of systemic racism, we're talking about something that is new to human civilization. We're talking about 300-400 years ago, that the whole concept of race was actually developed. Right? We don't have time to, unfortunately, go through the entire history, but I really encourage people to learn and read about how the concept of race even began, because we're really only one race, the human race. What I have on my skin is just a covering. It's just a chemical that allows my skin to be darker than your skin, but it doesn't have anything to do with intellect or skills or personality. It's just simply a skin covering. But hundreds of years ago, as we know, some people that wanted power and wealth created this system called races, divided us into different groups, and used that to conquer and colonize and take away land and create wealth and opportunity for themselves. So I think it's important to acknowledge that, to research that, and to understand that, so we see how systemic racism plays today. And that power and that wealth has been passed down through generations to one group, the group that has very little melanin in their skin, and has oppressed other groups. And I think that when you have that understanding, you become less defensive about, well, I don't burn crosses and do those terrible things, but
Right.
Understand it's a system, right? And when we take a look now, when it comes to the fitness arena, when I analyze that and I realize, well, how does that impact fitness, the fitness industry?
Right.
Well, the fitness industry is a business like any other industry. Right. So when you do your research and you understand generational wealth and how acquisition of land and property allowed many people with white skin to be able to have equity and purchase businesses and be able to build their wealth, then we know that when we look at the fitness industry, it's only about 50 or 60 years old. Right.
Right. And I'm sure you're now going to give us some practical takeaways. I don't even have to ask questions. You're so lovely to have on this show, because it's just words of wisdom that I need to hear. I've heard before and I'm still processing. To decrease what we can, all of us, of all, like you say, one race, human race, what we can do to decrease bigotry and racism in our fitness industry. Some practical takeaways and suggestions, please.
So first of all, as I mentioned, understand the history. So when we understand that, when we look at the top fitness brands out there, I shouldn't say brands, but fitness chains. So, we have like Good Life Fitness, LA Fitness, Anytime, 24 Hour, who am I missing? But if you look at all of those those chains. Those chains were founded by men. Majority of them are white men. And because we have been ingrained in a system of white supremacy, not saying that it's intentional always, that oftentimes choices were made for presidents and executives and board of directors that have been all white. And we live segregated lives. So those decisions that were made were oftentimes, those opportunities were given to white people. And that perpetuates the system of racism where Black and brown people are oftentimes kept out of the boardrooms and the executive teams, which in that case causes wealth and opportunity to stay there. So
thank you for speaking this truth. Thank you for your candor. I really appreciate you stepping up to say these things.
Exactly. So we have to admit to that. We have to recognize and say, okay, in order to break this system, we have to be able to make a conscious decision to be more inclusive. So yes, I'm not suggesting that that these companies fire all of their executives, and no, that wouldn't be practical. But the next time an opportunity comes up for an executive position, for a board position, we need to be putting pressure on these companies to say, you know what, we want to see some inclusivity in the next VP of whatever, or the next executive of blah, 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 because we need everybody at the table. Go ahead.
I just want to interject, maybe before even you say the next time an opportunity comes up to hire, start now revamping our application process to make sure the models and the imagery and the language and the potential winning of a position or earning a position or being deemed worthy, right, from the get-go seems like a possibility instead of a far reach.
Exactly. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I want people to really appreciate that when it comes to the discussion of racism, we're talking, at least from my perspective, it's more than just a bad joke or the wrong words or what have you. It's really about looking at opportunity and wealth creation. And that's why I think a lot of people misunderstand why people are out there marching and protesting. Yes, it's a lot about police brutality, but the police system is only one aspect of the overall system of systemic racism. Black Lives Matter, which is one activist group which I support, and I love what, for the most part, what their initial goal was, but they're only one group. There's many, many other groups that have been before them in fighting for social justice. So I think we really have to look up the root cause of what's causing this, and then everybody has to do their own part from their own corner to deal with the situation.
Thank you. Very wise. Go ahead.
If I can think of an illustration, I think of it like when I was a kid. I don't know if you did this as a kid, Lawrence, but when I was younger, there used to be this game called the parachute game. And we would take just the portion of the parachute that is up in the air, and a whole bunch of kids, we'd grab a corner of it and we count 1, 2, 3, and we throw the parachute up in the air, and then we go under the parachute and tuck it underneath our butts. And then it was really fun because everybody's under the parachute, we'd be giggling and laughing. But in order for it to work, everybody had to grab an end of the parachute and had to participate in lifting it up. So it's the same thing when it comes to breaking down systemic racism, whether you're in the fitness industry, or the financial industry, the banking industry, the legal aspect. Everybody has to grab a corner and do whatever you can do to lift each other up and to make sure that we're all included and that we have equal opportunity.
Beautiful metaphor from the childhood game where I was always picked last, so that already makes me nervous and sweaty when I hear about childhood games, to what we need to do today. And great takeaways. The feed is a buzz with your systemic racism roots, and also our feed is a buzz with your takeaways, in addition to calling out the companies. And it's great to ask, who's on the board of this company? Maybe not who founded it, but who are the decision makers, and really investigate a little bit more, and hoping that they are listening to what Dion Mason says. Tell us, please, where can we find you on social media before we let you go?
Sure. It's Dion Mason Fitness, pretty much across the board, or just my first and last name. So you can find me on Instagram, Dion Mason Fitness, on Twitter, Dion Mason, and on Facebook, Dion Mason Fitness.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I wanted to just share a small story because, I mean, there is certainly, I'm giving broad strokes here, But I also just want to share a story that you're probably going to find that most people of color, most Black people have a story to talk about in terms of their own experience with systemic racism. And I remember there was a time when, a few years back actually, where I was working for a company, I won't call the name, but it was a fitness company that was, I had just gotten the position. I was doing spinning classes there. And I one day arrived to pick up my check, and they told me that the checks were available at the administrative office, which was just across the street from the gym itself. They had 2 buildings. So I parked my car directly in front of the building, which was perpendicular to the building, ran inside to grab my check. Then they told me, actually, we sent the checks over to the main building. You'll have to go there to collect your check. It's okay. I figured that it's only about 100 meters, so I'll just walk over there and grab my check. So I collected my check, came back to my car, and I found that there was another vehicle that had blocked me in. Like I was parked sort of like this, and they blocked me in. But I'm the kind of person, I don't assume the worst. I think, well, maybe someone's just dropping off an elderly person, or dropping off some groceries. I'll wait a few minutes before I try to figure out what's going on. So I'm sitting in my car, waiting for about 5 minutes. Nobody comes up, and I had another class to teach. I didn't want to be late for my class. So I'm starting to honking my horn, hoping the person would come out to move their vehicle. So a white woman came out very angrily, came on the passenger side of my car and points, I guess for me to roll down the window. So I roll down my window, and I'm looking at her kind of oddly, and she's like, "You're not supposed to park here. This is private property." So I said, "Well, I'm actually here on business with the building in front of me, but I'm leaving now. So could you please move your vehicle," right? She's like, "Well, you're not supposed to park here." And she was quite angry. And I thought, okay, I'm leaving. Please move your vehicle. So she's like, "No, you're going to sit here and know that, whatever, you're not supposed to park here." And she storms off. And I'm thinking, okay, I have to go. I have a class to teach, right? So she storms off. I get out the car. I'm saying, "Lady, please move your car. I need to go." She goes to her, it was a residential, there was a bunch of homes next to the club. She comes back with her husband or partner. The 2 of them basically start bullying me, and we end up in a verbal argument over this parking. And I can't understand why are they being so aggressive when there's other free parking spots in the lot. So I'm just trying to get out of the situation. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is that as a Black woman, I have to think always 2 steps ahead, because reacting emotionally, there's a cost to that. So I end up in an argument with these 2. They were saying racial slurs at me. At the end of the day, there was a huge blowout. I'm like, "You need to move." There was some expletives. I was like, "Move your effing car." I'm honking my horn. I'm taking pictures of the situation.
Right.
Eventually, they finally moved. But what I didn't know was, in this whole argument, the general manager of the club, who happened to be a white male, apparently was watching the situation. I'm thinking that the situation is done. I go to teach my other class. I figure I'm going to have a glass of wine. Situation is taken care of, only to find out that I got an email where I was fired by this club. Now, again, I'm not on the club. Picking up your check. Yeah, I'm not on the club property. I was being blocked in. It was a matter of basically road rage, if you want to call it that. Yeah. And I got fired. Yeah. So the reason no problem. But the reason why I'm bringing that up, this is just one situation that many times as Black people we have to face, is that there's a cost for us to even discuss racism. There's a cost for us to stand up against white supremacy. Like, here is this white couple that were asserting their biases against me.
I hear you. And fear. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And then as a result of me standing up. Yeah.
Tip of the iceberg. And then what if you're recording, and then what if you call the police? Then there's a whole other topic, which we don't have time to do right now. Do you trust that the police would come and actually be able to enforce the law and not bias, right?
Exactly. But I don't want to end on that, because I just want to bring that to your attention, in the sense of, for people listening, that these are things that oftentimes we don't talk about, because people often won't believe us unless we have a video tape. Right. But this happened here at a fitness club just a few years ago. So there needs to be an understanding that there are deep biases. That general manager didn't even call me to ask what happened. Right. It was just an assumption that I, as a Black person, are seen as a threat. and therefore I should be, gotten rid of, kind of thing. So, I do
I
have
want to
hope.
strategize that a little bit, you and me, when this is done. But I'm gonna just have to move on to our next guest now. I'm very grateful that you shared that story, because people need to hear the story, that stories like that, back of the bus or not even on this bus, still happen. And your takeaways, your very practical takeaways, and calling out what you called out. Thank you. I think the world needs more people who are willing to take the voice that we all need to hear. Dion, thank you. You know I love you.
Thank you so much, Lawrence. Love you too. And thank you for being brave to bring this topic to light. I appreciate you.
Here we go. Thank you for saying that. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Goodbye to Canada. And we're going to come back to the United States on our interdependent weekend. My friends, we are going to go to a colleague, to an award winner, to a presenter, to a versatile land and water presenter and humanitarian and keeper of the keys of something we're going to share with you that's pretty interesting. Connie Martin of Connie Martin Fitness is going to be joining us not far from ORD, or the major airport of O'Hare, Chicago-like area. I'm going to invite Connie to come up to us. We have her in the works. She's going to be joining us soon. I will tell you that she won a fitness convention called Fitness Idol. She's been teaching. She has DVDs. She's land and water based, and she's got something connected that nobody knows. You ready? Miss Connie, hello. I think I'm going to unmute you. Hi.
Hi. How are you, Lawrence?
Happy 4th of July weekend. Thank you for joining us. Where are we finding you, and what time is it?
It is 5:22 Central Standard Time, so 6:22 EST, and I'm reigning from Aurora, Illinois, which is about 40 minutes from downtown Chicago. It's a suburb outside the city limits of Chicago.
Tell me, Connie, what's going on, or what? I don't want to spend too much time on this. When there were a lot of riots or marches or everything in between and statues, was that affecting you in your area at all outside?
Absolutely. Not down my particular street, but in my downtown city, we had the initial part of what emanated into the Black Lives Movement. We had a lot of the looters and violent seekers coming downtown Aurora, busting windows, burning police car, things like that. Aurora being the second largest city in the state of Illinois with almost 300,000 people. They did a little bit of research investigation, found out that a majority of those people that came downtown were not from Aurora, were actually coming from Chicago, just to come up, as you would say.
Right.
But the movement did spark protests all around my entire neighborhood, including Naperville, predominantly white community, which happens to be the third largest city in the state of Illinois. And a lot of that riot and protest affected my family, especially my children. I have 3 grown adult Black male sons in their 30s. And so they feel a lot of the pressure for all the things that happen to them in their lives. They're voicing back to me, Mom, remember when I was pulled over for the police and I didn't do nothing wrong, and I was downtown in Naperville, and they just pulled me over, said something about my light in the back, but really nothing was wrong with it until I got home and saw it, And so, so my children have actually experienced racial profile. And so have I.
I'm sorry that that's happened. I think it's unconscionable that it's happened this lifetime, that we know.
Yes.
But you bring it to light. Thank you for doing that. For those of us that want to start to make change before fitness in our personal lives, can you make a tip or suggestion of where we can start?
Absolutely. I am a retired educator. I taught school for 32 years.
You're still teaching.
School, 6th and 7th grade, language arts and reading and history. I have a degree in history. It starts with education. Many people, not all, many white or Caucasian Americans know nothing about African American history besides that there were slaves. They don't know anything about and just speaking to you to tell you, actually coming from an American family whose roots are deeply rooted in this country, 6 generations. I am the 6th generation descendant of a slave family whom we know who was bought and sold in an auction block in Annapolis, Maryland, and brought down to Leesburg, Kentucky to endure a life of servitude. So I have witnessed in my family decade upon decade of knowledge of racism and bigotry, deeply rooted in my family for the past 170 years. So systemic racism has been taught to me as a little girl. My parents could not vote until the vote came legal in 1966. I was 6 years old when my parents were in their 30s could vote. So they couldn't vote until, they were in their adulthood. My grandparents couldn't vote most of their life, So I'm coming from that background where I know that that's coming from that systemic racism basis that's aged old, that's stale. And the racism that derives from that is hurting the generation after generation, starting with the children who are being ingrained with those biases and prejudices and the ideals of non-inclusion because of our Black skin. And I've experienced it,
One of the things you do when you teach is you help build the land and water-based fitness community.
Yes.
Before we go there, the Black community in America survived through no small part based on this clandestine, secret, informational artwork trade that you bring into consciousness in public speaking. Can you tell us a little bit of show and tell about the quilts, please?
Oh, sure. So based upon our past, there was an establishment who was created by white men who were in Philadelphia in 1776, started an organization, mostly Quakers, started an organization. It was called Yearly Meetings. And they created this whole network, intricate network of pathways, safe houses, and safe routes that slaves could use with the leadership of abolitionists, leading them from the South to the North. So codes were made that include secret messages that were instilled in the patterns of some quilts to aid abolitionists and free Black men to help slaves escape as fugitives on the Underground Railroad to either the North, where there was already freedom 100 years prior to that, or free states in the United States up north. One of the quilt patterns, do you want me to show the quilt pattern, Lawrence? One of the quilt patterns that I wanted to talk about today was just quickly to tell you about the Drunkards Path. Drunkards Path, hold it up high enough. This is Drunkards Path. Drunkards Path is symbolic in the Underground Railroad and also in my life because it really is a symbol of disparagement or disappointment. It means stop. So if you saw this sign, if you saw this quilt, it would be a quilt of all of these designs on it with special stitching in it that would tell you, okay, you've made it to this point, but you have to stop. Why? Because there's slave catchers or bounty hunters who are en route to catch you, and you can't come out to our abolitionist safe house right now. So you have to go back 5 miles, go around this corner, go down 10 more miles, go to the next safe house, come back around. And so it was a big choice to decide which way to go, which kind of parallels with my fitness career. I've had success, and then I've had doors slammed in my face. Why are the doors slammed in my face? I'm teaching aqua, the same with pretty much seems to me the same skill set as someone else. I'm talking 10 years ago, prior to Fit Camp, but I would have the same skill set as them, but I wouldn't get the job. Right. I wouldn't get the opportunity. And I had to sit back and think, why didn't I get that opportunity? And another one is I was hired with another couple of other aqua fitness instructors for land fitness classes and water fitness classes, but I wasn't paid. I found out later that I wasn't paid as much. I wasn't paid on an equal paid basis when we had the same start date and the same about levels of experience. So that was the Drunkard's Path to me. That was stop. Can't go any further in this direction. You have to retreat a little bit, think about it, think about why inclusion was not part of their policy, why diversity is not part of their hiring policies, right? And then go another route and go through, another avenue, and eventually reach the goal that I really had in my life ever since I retired from teaching 5 years ago, which was to be a national presenter.
And you got it, you won, and you're around, and you've been doing it, and you've also started your own convention, which is super inclusive and diverse, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So a 5-man team of all African American individuals with a plethora of different skill sets. We have business skill set. We have two of us are presenters. 3 of us are from the same sorority. We all got together. Some of them are even been on television with their fitness businesses, and been on Shark Tank with their business ideas.
Good for you. You started your own. How many people say, I want to get into a convention? You started your own.
Yes.
Yeah.
With the plan, with the premise that we would definitely not do what other people were done to us.
Right. What about just stories of exploitation, Connie? How many conventions have actually put you on the cover when there were printed brochures of a convention where you weren't even invited to present, but you looked like a diverse model to put on their cover? Seems a little false advertising to some, no?
Yes, I agree with that. And I couldn't believe that actually happened to me. But that was a point blank racist and feeling of inequality or non-inclusion that in my recent adult lives I've encountered. I was asked to present at a convention, a fitness convention. I was asked to present, put on the roster. And then 3 weeks before the convention, I saw the cover of the convention, and it was a Black girl, looking like a fitness leader, right smack in the front of the cover. Yet I was not invited to the convention, nor was any other African American invited to the convention. It was all white invited to a convention, but this was the killer part, or just the misunderstanding, or the disheartenment, I should say. Well, is that the city that the convention was 67% Black.
Sure. I'm sure there are many people watching around the world who can relate. Someone wants to say hello before I let you go. Biscuit, it's Connie.
Biscuit.
Connie's been here with you. You've been swimming in the pool together. You've been teaching while he's been in the water. He can't really hear you too much because, you know, he's turned off during these shows. He's like, Daddy's crazy again. Connie, any other takeaways for us who want to become more diverse in our fitness diversity application? Any tip or suggestion? We have very little time left, but I'm sure you got some.
Yeah, I just let's impart reminders and implant reminders of our past, of African American past, and the present circumstances that have derived from it, that we need to think kindly, think and act compassionately, and treat others with inclusion and diversity as we would be treated ourselves. I was taught that as a young age. We need to create social reform. We need to change the system of policing and the education of police officers before they're allowed to get on the streets. We need to change the criminal justice system that seems to be heavy-handed toward arresting Blacks before they're arresting any other race of people. And we need to do this by giving an opportunity for fitness businesses to start hosting workshops or hosting job fairs that are inclusive to African American peoples of all different skill levels and skill sets, and remind them that things will only change. We can only come together in peaceful times, in peaceful protests, and respect for the work of Dr. King and Gandhi and all the people before us that have performed all types and taught us the way in order to fight for our rights and civil rights. But it is in our future to ask around who is willing to band together to help our children of the future be more educated, so that the biases and prejudices are not as avid and as acidic as they are at this particular time, where people have non-educated and non-ideals and prejudices that are instilled in them.
Connie, is it possible that at the end of this, because we're near the end of our time together, could you on Facebook in our comments type where we can find more information about you and your work on bringing to light all the secret messages in the quilts that saved so many Black lives, that survived dozens of years because of the work that your ancestors did? Because I know you go around public speaking and you tie that into movement and you tie that into water-based movement. You are so versatile. You're inspirational. You're one to follow, as well as please put in the comment where we can follow your MOVE convention, because it's very important to me that people can complain or they can be part of the solution, and you started your own convention.
Yeah, so we have already had 2 conventions, one in April, one in May, and then we have another one coming up September 19th and 20th.
Around the corner.
Yes, coming up quickly, and I'll make that fact as well. I'll notice that.
Please put it all in our comments now. I love you. Peace out.
Take care, Lawrence. Thank you so much for inviting me to have this platform.
My
Bye-bye.
pleasure. My pleasure. Bye-bye to Chicago. Bye. All right, my friends, we're going to go to Canada. And just as we do, I'd like to say, hey, if you're just joining us, a couple things. Call to action. Hashtag I was here watching from, and you tell us where you're watching from. Number 2, if you are watching this on my Facebook page, I'm really going to be sad tomorrow. Please click share and share now and spread our message of a single theme, full moon, planets aligning halfway through 2020 day for FitnessWorks Episode 8. Click share so that you can show that you support the message of diversity. This is not asking you to post a black square. This is not asking you to be silent. This is asking you to share solutions, ideas, communication, commitment, curiosity, and compassion. All right, we're going to make sure you get this entire broadcast. And in your notes, you'll see in comments how to go. findlawrence.com/fitnessworks. You'll get this to share our complete episode. My friends, for the first time tonight, I have invited guest whose skin color matches mine. Who thought I'd be saying something like that on a show of Fitness Works? But because we're talking about systemic racism, I asked, she said yes immediately. Mo Hagan of Canada fame, of CanFit Pro, and a fitness author and writer and star. Hi, Mo. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I can hear you. Yes, I can see you. You're a sight for sore eyes. Thank you very much for being the first person that I said, you are it in conventions. You are it in program. You are so connected with Good Life. Would you please come on a show and talk about systemic racism? And you said yes immediately. Thank you for that. Can you tell us, where are you and what time is it?
Well, it's I'm in London, Ontario, Canada, and it is happy hour here at 6:38 p.m.
You know me, but you know it's going to be a show that goes downhill if I start before this. Yeah, you can't do that. Yeah. Tell me, with what was going on in London, Ontario, in the streets, in any kind of uprests or statues or any kind of demonstrations outside in the last couple of weeks?
Very peaceful demonstrations in our parks while practicing physical distancing because we're still under full quarantine here in London, Ontario. And it was really remarkable to see how many people came out and showed their contribution and their support. And it was self-governed. There was very little police influence. There didn't need to be. And I was so proud of London. And for the most part, all of Canada has been showing similar support.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm glad that it was peaceful, and I'm glad that it happened. Were you pleased to be part of London, Ontario's response, that it seemed to be pretty dignified, if you will?
Yes, I was. And in fact, I chose to protest from afar. I actually didn't go down because I have done a lot of work to really take care of my physical distancing for many reasons for the work that I do. So I viewed it on the news. I supported my friends and I cheered them on. And what I did was I contributed to all the conversations that were going on, not just here in London, but in Toronto, where there was a much bigger peaceful march. Sure. And it was great to support that. And I wanted to say where I'm showing my contribution is anytime anyone asks me to be part of a conversation, well, it may be uncomfortable. I'm showing my support by saying yes.
Thank you. I'm super
for
grateful.
what you're doing.
I don't know what I'm doing. I just know leap and hope that the smart people will appear, because I've leapt and I've leaped, I've leapt, I took a leap, and I've invited you, and you're one of the people on the good list. I used to have a good list and a not so good list, and now I call the not so good list the not so good list. I used to call it the white list and the black list, but I'm redoing all my terminology lately. So it starts here. Yes, thank you for calling all of this physical distancing and not that crazy social distancing, because we're more social than ever. Look at us. Our life is a Zoom box around the world. We're booming, and we're physically distancing so that we don't go 6 feet under. We stay 6 feet minimum apart. Thank you for using terminology that supports our industry trying to stay socially connected. Before we talk to you about fitness industry steps we can take, and I know you have some ideas in our personal lives, do you have any suggestions of what we can do towards being more inclusive or more diverse or less racist?
Great. So 3 things for sure. Number 1, and many of your presenters have already said, educate yourself. I'm going to say unlearn what it is that you believe is to be true, because we all have our prejudices, whether we admit it or not. We all have our history. We all have our beliefs and values. And while we may think that they're pristine, we have to unlearn some of those, just like we unlearn habits. Secondly, we need to connect our community so we can become more diversified in our personal lives, because when we do that, it'll help us bring it into our professional lives as well. And we can learn from each other. And if you're in your own isochrome or your own network, and that is not a diverse network due to whatever. I mean, I grew up in a very white Anglo-Saxon community. I'm not blaming that upbringing. I didn't decide where I was going to live. My parents brought me to Oakville, Ontario. I went to a school where it was very little diversity. So that's all I knew until I got to university. But it's about inviting yourself in and inviting others in. And we all say we're the average of the 5 people we hang out with. So expand that group of influencers so that you can bring the diversity, not only of color, but of knowledge and of empathy. The other thing I would say is, and I've learned this just recently, and I've had a couple of very humbling experiences. One is not to be afraid of reaching out to your friends who are Black or of color and saying, how can I help? Versus, I understand, the feel, felt, found. We are trained on, I understand. I know how you feel. No, we don't. And we can't. So admit that and use your privilege, whatever that privilege is, to help in the conversation, help in the movement, and help in the change.
Thank you. And be prepared that not everyone will say, oh, thank you for asking. What a wonderful opening of a conversation. Let's talk about this. Some people may say, just hypothetically, of course, too little, too late. You never had time before. Why do you want to talk to me now?
That's very true. And that happened to me. And I sat on it. And that was what I was most proud about. I actually allowed the universe to guide me, because I didn't know what to do. And I didn't want to become defensive. I didn't want to let emotions get in the way. So I sat on it. And it was the best thing I could have done, because they needed time. I needed time. And then I took the opportunity of stepping into another conversation that involved us. And it allowed us to have that very humbling and honest conversation. But
with a witness next time.
Exactly. And that really helped me understand that I can't understand. I can only care. Right. And I can validate what they're going through for them. And then demonstrate through my own example and leadership that we are about the change and we are contributing to the change. And I do believe that, and I've been saying this for 111 days, but who's counting? That's the amount of time I've been in quarantine.
You are counting. We're watching your posts every day, a movement series that's never repeated. I comment on every one. God bless you for putting out product. Go ahead. You say every day that you're counting.
Every day I say that there's a silver lining in what we're going through. And the silver lining is that there's been less distractions in our lives. So it brings this Black Lives Matter movement forward and allows white lives to pay attention to it. They're not distracted by other things. And we're seeing now, like never before, that there is more agreement that things must change for us to become better. And for us to become better, we ourselves must become better.
Thank you for saying that we're starting to make progress and we're starting to make attention, even in fitness, by having communication. My friend Roberto, who's on tonight watching from New York, is not on Facebook, and he's watching because he's part of the backstory of the show. He told me something recently that changed my life. He said, Lawrence, you will always make mistakes. The fact is that you want to try to open up a conversation with your colleagues. First, you know you're making progress when you get the attention of the millennial girls. Then, when you attract the gays, you know you're onto something. When the blacks chime in, people are listening. And then when you got the haters, you know you've made it. And thank you, Roberto, because it teaches me you keep on. You're never going to get everybody happy. Michael Piercy just lost his father recently, and he quotes his father, Robert Piercy, often saying, no matter what you do, there's someone in the world, whether you're awake or sleeping, who's calling you an asshole. So you keep on.
Yep, I agree. I agree 100%. It's all reframing, just like it's about reframing our viewpoint and our values.
Right. Mo, tell us, what is something we can do in our fitness life? Because you have many lenses. You put on your glasses of programmer, virtual programmer, and Good Life Fitness, teacher, author, women organization leader. You did a call to action around the world. It's growing with Women in Fitness Association and others. Took the first one to Asia, to AFC convention. I sing your praises and I follow you. And there aren't a lot of people that I make stop time for. I'll make time for, but I don't try to stop time for. You're one of those. It's not blowing smoke. I'm already doing what I want to do for you, which is not much, which is fine. I want to say, what practical steps can we do, or a few, or one, in our fitness life to help this issue, to decrease or eradicate racism, at least in our company with our peeps?
The number one is get involved in the conversation. Put yourself out there, get uncomfortable to find a new level of comfort, and then welcome diversity into your circle group. So whether that's reaching out to people in your instructor network and in giving them opportunities. I heard Connie say, and I think another person said on your show already tonight, that they were paid less money. Make sure that does not happen. I'm shocked because I know at Good Life, we've never paid for, we've never looked at the color of your skin or your background as a reason to pay you less. And we've never looked at that, but I can honestly say that we only see what we see with our eyes. So one of the things I would say is if you're in a position of influence is to not wait for Black people or people of color to step into opportunity. And whether that's at the frontline level or a manager level or a vice president or above level, is reach out and let them know opportunities exist. I was on a call recently where I know this particular group said, I myself will back down from applying for position because I feel there is no room at the table at the executive level or above for a Black person. The company is not ready for it. And I was like, of course, my new unlearning said, thank you for sharing. Versus my initial response would be say, I can't believe you think that way, because that's the way it is. And I have to accept that. But being a person in a position that can influence, I need to move forward with a commitment that we will open that opportunity and reach out and invite people in. Because until that happens, until we bring more Black people and people of color to the fitness industry, I don't know if the change will happen fast enough for the belief that this change will be long lasting and not just temporary.
Thank you. Because we're at least having the conversation, and you as programmer are putting on those lenses, as we heard with Dion Mason, who is your current instructor of the year from CanFit Pro winner that we've had tonight.
Here. Yeah. And I want to say, CanFit Pro is Canada's leading authority in fitness education and certification. We've taken this matter very seriously because all lives matter, Black, people of color, and specifically in Canada, Indigenous, because there is systemic racism beyond Black. It is Indigenous within Canada as it is in some other countries. And there needs to be that set of lenses as well. So we've already established a strategy. We've already established a committee with our chair. I'm owning it as the leader of the company, but our chairperson is Robert Robinson, who's an incredible person, who's a manager. He is a Black man who we want to see at that table. And we feel that he is going to help us put on the set of lenses we need and take the action we need. And for all those listening and watching in the industry, desiring to be presenters, you know, again, my judgment was we put out calls for presenters every year. And we say it generally that all talent is welcome. We're going to be very bold about it, and we're going to say it. And we're going to reach out, and we're going to find that diversity, and we're going to make a commitment to that. Your earlier speaker as well said about, I think it was Jay, said it starts with marketing. We got to show that we're serious about this. And then we've got to stand our, you know, not just say it, but do it.
Thank you for that. And I hope everyone listening, all the Calvins, all the Tonys, all the Craigs are realizing that you're speaking out. And I'm sure that CanFit Pro 2021 virtual and live is going to be more diverse than ever before. Thank you for putting together the committees, and thank you for heading it up with the people who can speak to what it's like in that skin. And thank you for sharing all of that with us here, because it's sort of like news breaking. So thank you.
And thank you for everything you do. I love you greatly. And if you want more work, I'm back to you. I'm going to give you more, because CanFit Pro Virtual Series starts in August, and we need leaders like you to help us share this whole new reinvention of education and connection. And we want as many people as possible there. And we're so happy to have you.
Yes, I'm honored. Yes, whatever you want, because I know you're ethical and legal. And number 3, I don't know what I'm doing except asking questions, because I don't dare say anything about what I think about anything. I'm just asking people who are so much smarter than I am, what do you think about this? Thank you for jumping on from Canada, from the perspective of what's going on at conventions. Can you just tell us what's your show and tell us, how do we find out about this virtual event you alluded to that's coming up very soon?
So you represent so well, but I had to show my Canada, and happy July 4th weekend to all my American friends and family. And lastly, if you want to find out more about our virtual series, go to www.canfitpro2020.org, and you can learn all about, it's not just one event, it's 4 events over 5 days, spreads out your learning from August through to November. We want to reboot 2020 and help fit pros end their year feeling smarter, stronger, more passionate, and aligned with their purpose. And thank you for helping us do that.
Me? I've been invited to do something there? Oh my gosh, I better check my inbox. I'm sure there's a contract waiting for me to sign.
There is. And you need to respond. It's through Eventbrite. I can't remember, but you are on my list to come after, boy.
Dear my love, if I'm not filtering the people who have agreed to be on this show, I'm asking the people who pull out why not, and then I'm filtering the hate mail. So yes, I promise just to be on this. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for telling us one more time the www address of this virtual event that's going to be worldwide in a few days.
Thank you. www.canfitpro2020.org. And the app is available in your app store, so you can download the app and be part of the conversation, be part of the connection, and be part of our future, because we're going to be mixing live and virtual. And thank you for inviting me, Lawrence. Anytime you do this, just anytime you think that there's a place for me to contribute and support, just, you know how to find me.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying yes, and I appreciate you saying yes with not some hidden agenda, but to be part of all of our solution. And for all the people of color listening, all the Black people, all the people of African descent, listen, you need to apply, because you know now that your application is going to be considered. And if it's not, that you're thinking that it will, send it through me. There, I put myself on the line. Thank you, Mo.
Bye for now.
Bye for now. Bye. Bye to Canada. My friends, we're going to go super far away through very patiently waiting. Guess what? From Canada with no visa needed. Boom! We're going all the way. Guess where? We're going to Australia. What? We're going to Australia, where patiently waiting has been Ben Seong. Please share this post. Please share this feed. Please put in your comments, I was here watching from, and please make sure you check out your comments and interact with us. What's inspiring you and what you're learning from? Yes? My friends, Mr. Ben is a colleague. He is a role model. He is a model himself. If you gotta get some inspiration from training, you need to follow this guy, Mr. Ben Seong, or on social media, Benjamin Seong. Mr. Ben, good morning. Welcome. Can I hear you? I'm going to unmute you so I can say to you, through the magic of Zoom and international borders, I'm clicking to unmute you. I think you're unmuted. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yay! We have success going across the world through satellites on full moon day. Hi.
Hi. Good morning. How are you?
I'm so glad that Zoom asked us to look right at the camera and not at the guest because I'd be so distracted staring into your eyes. Can I just say,
Stop it.
what time is it where you are?
It is 8:56 in the morning.
And it's your Monday, so happy week.
It is a Monday. Thank you very much.
Ben, as you know, we're discussing a really wonderful topic that's very important to change and affecting all of us, especially as we're trying to find some solutions to injustices in fitness. What's been going on in Australia in general as a result or parallel to the Black Lives Movement, the riots, the cops, the statues, the whole unrest in the last 2 weeks that we've seen worldwide from America?
Well, to be very honest with you, I think Australia has kind of taken a big back seat in all this. It is definitely, we've had some protest in Melbourne itself. That's where I am in Victoria. And Victoria right now, for those of you that may not know, is the hub of the spike of the coronavirus, I guess, in that sense. We are getting a lot more cases being recorded, more than any other state. And so our state is on stricter rules. There are suburbs on lockdown. And I guess if you're looking at the whole Black Lives Matters situation within Victoria itself, we definitely had a protest. And I believe Sydney as well had a protest, but mainly in the main cities of Australia.
Okay. Were they pretty, would you say that these unrest, these protests, as you say, were pretty safe and
rowdy? They were very safe, yeah.
Okay.
They were a lot safer. I think it was important in that sense that the sentiment of Black Lives Matters was out there. But I think as well, because of the whole corona spike, because of the implications of what was going on with the coronavirus itself, people had to take kind of a back seat to understand that whatever happened there, they just kind of had to maintain that it was safe as well. Unfortunately, through the whole event of the protest itself, that's where the spread got worse. That's where the numbers increase. And this is why we're being put back in the situation that we are right now. So again, pros and cons for the whole thing that has happened.
Right. And flashback to our show that you did months ago, we were talking about your takeaways. Stay home, relax, stay educated, stay safe. And I'm sorry to hear what you're talking about, as well as you have some love coming in our comments from your AFC partner in crime, number 2 supporter, Kathleen Murakami, watching from San Diego. She's giving you some love in our comments and is on and supporting you. She's your number 2 fan, of course, because you're talking to your number 1 fan. Oh, now you adjust your camera because Kathy's watching. Yes, there's a woman in the house who can bend her head through her knees, and wonderful. Good for her. I know you love all that kind of stuff. Keep it going. Okay. Tell me, Ben, for those of us who are looking at diversifying and becoming less racist and diminishing the biases that we might not even be aware we have in our personal lives, can you make any tips or suggestions for us?
I'll be very honest with you. I think in my own personal life, the way we relate to the world is purely based on experience. Right. In my personal life, I haven't experienced any sort of racism in that sense. I mean, if you look at my situation, I'm in Australia, I'm Asian, I'm not black, I'm not white, I'm yellow, right? But in that sense, I run a company called Australian Strength Performance. I think if there's anything, what I preach is a personification of the lack of racism that we have here. A lot of my staff come from different backgrounds. And we celebrate that. We celebrate the fact that there's so many people of different color training under one roof, working together. And at no one point in time has color been a barrier for anything. And I mean, this is speaking from my own point of view and my own experience. So in that sense, you know, you might look in and say you're blessed, but you haven't experienced it. But at the same time, I think there is a lot of underlying issues that exist within Australia itself. And this has to do more with the Aboriginal, the Torres Strait Island people of Australia, the original inhabitants of the land, that I feel throughout this period of time has been trying to regain back their status as the original holders of the land. So this is where I guess that Black Lives Matters actually carries over into this situation. Yeah.
Right. So there's more of an awareness of diversity and inclusion, and maybe even righting wrongs that maybe didn't come to light before, that maybe are people starting to talk about things more now.
Absolutely. And I think as well, it has to be made clearer. Let's say, for example, Melbourne and Sydney, where it's a city, we don't see many Aboriginal or Torres Strait Island people within our community itself. Now, if you go further north, parts of Australia, you would see a lot more. And that's where they, I guess they occupy a lot more of the space, the land, and represent a lot more of the population down there. And so there is a bigger understanding of the culture. The Aboriginal culture is a very beautiful culture. It's a very deep-set culture. And personally, I always feel that there is a lot of wisdom in ancient traditions. Cultures that are very new tend not to have a lot of that wisdom. And I think in order for us to heal, we need to look at the wisdom of what ancient traditions actually teach us. And this is to understand cultures as such.
Wonderful. And I kudos to you from a couple comments back about having such a diverse workforce under your company that you founded, and also for talking about being yellow or Asian in Australia, where you might consider yourself, are you a minority there?
In Melbourne, I mean, from a demographic point of view, yes, but it is so diverse. It is so diverse. I mean, my business is on a street where you would find 10 different restaurants of different origin. We've got Russian restaurants all the way to Indian restaurants, Japanese restaurants, to you name it, right?
Melbourne is the eating capital of Australia. Melbourne has that street called Adelaide, whatever that is, yeah, with all the cafes and the Paris. Oh my gosh, I ate myself through Melbourne.
We've got a lot.
Yeah,
yeah, that's right. We've got a lot of different cultures, a lot of diversity. But I think if it's anything, there is a very big population of Asian students, a lot from China, a lot from parts of Southeast Asia and Asia. But I also think that right now, given the political situation, there is strain between Australia and China, and that's a whole new story. And that puts a lot of strain right now with the situation with international students.
That's political and racism, right? New topics.
Yeah.
Ben, do you have any suggestions for those of us in our fitness professional world, tips or ideas of how we can decrease our bias or our preconceptions, or just becoming more fair against racism in fitness?
Absolutely. Now, I think I'm seeing this from a purely evolutionary and a psychological point of view, because that's my background.
Right.
But typically when we make judgments against something, if you look at it purely from a survival background, a judgment is an ideology of a situation where you're taking a stance to protect yourself. Most of the time you make judgment because it's an experience that you have had with one person that tends to define your world. And unfortunately, you use that as a defense mechanism. So a lot of people make judgment not because they have a hate, but because they're actually trying to protect themselves. But in saying so, I think people should start to realize that any sort of judgment or preconceived notion that they might have is not, like I say, it's not a deep-seated hate. It's something where they need to step back and understand why are they actually having that. That means one bad experience with one person or a person of color or whatever the case is, or a situation, does not define how you should look at situations moving forward. It should give you an understanding, but give you an understanding of how to work around it as well. And I think that's how we've adopted how we approach, whether it's color, whether it's individuals joining our center, whether it's us hiring different people, is to understand we may have had experiences, but that doesn't define that person. And so obviously with the fitness world, in terms of, let's say, hiring, there has to be a certain set of credentials that you run through. And definitely we don't want to take in color. We don't want to take in, anything that's physical. We want to look at the skill set more than anything else. So I'm only speaking from a very, I guess, a view that hasn't been affected so much by this notion of racism in the area.
Right, but I think it's very valid that we want to take into play what Dion was saying before from Canada, that we look at the human race, one race, and then look at, as Jay was
100%.
saying, qualifications and hire the best person for the job, remembering what Lincoln said from the UK, that people are more than where they come from or the color of their skin's racist, sort of stereotypical predisposition that we think. So,
absolutely.
Good for you for having that kind of comment. Any other final word or closing statement on this topic before I let you continue your week on a Monday morning in Australia?
I think if there are any sort of individuals in the fitness industry within Australia that's kind of looking in, there definitely needs to be an increased awareness of the Black Lives Matters movement, but in relation to the original inhabitants of our land, Australia. I think we're in a very privileged society. Definitely looking at Australia and comparing Australia to, let's say, America, for example, it's a very different type of society. We don't have guns out there. We don't have, I guess, the safety of our community is a lot higher in that sense. And so we take a lot of what we have for granted. And I think that this is a privilege. It is a privilege where we are. And I think we should learn from what is around us. So even in my previous interviews with you, I did mention that it is very important to kind of take a step back first when we're talking about COVID, rather than rushing into trying to implement all these different things that you've learned. Take a step back and actually see what's going on and make a smart decision on how to move forward. And I think a lot of people with the movements that are going on, they try to rush in and they want to put in their opinions. And I think before we do anything, again, is putting in their opinions, which means that you have a preconceived notion of something already. You want to be right or you want to be wrong. And it's not about that. It is about understanding, because in every situation, there is a gray, right? And so I think for us, being in a privileged situation to see what's going on before we jump into anything, before we start protesting, step back. What are we protesting about? How are we adding to the positiveness of this notion of Black Lives Matters, which is something so critical and so important, by standing up there and protesting? Is it helping? Is there something else we can do? Do actions speak louder than words? Rather than standing down there doing something, can we do something to lead ourselves as leaders, to put something and implement something in action, and to do that, and for people to take note of that? Because change doesn't come by standing there and shouting. Change comes by taking action on yourself, being the leader in front rather than telling people what to do.
Thank you for your international perspective. One of the things I always want to do if I'm going to do a show is make it global, because I've been fortunate enough to have connections like you. And I want people to know, what is racism like in the English-speaking places that we can go to easily on a show like this, from Australia to the UK to Canada and the US. And you said yes more than once. I'm sorry to hear that COVID is very much a growing reality where you are. It is now in America as well, like Florida, Texas, and the West Coast. And it's just unfortunate. I thank you for your wisdom here. You are all in our thoughts and prayers. And I want to make sure that all my friends and followers on my timeline, or because you've shared our message, we want to follow what Ben does, because we can find you on Instagram, we can find you online, and we can find you on Facebook. You're out there part of the solution in an inclusive, diverse marketplace of fitness. And that's part of your message when you present at conventions like AFC as well, and in Thailand.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. No, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I truly appreciate what you're doing and the energy that you give out. It does mean a lot. And I speak on behalf of a lot of fitness professionals out there to be able to get support in this way, in this time that they feel is unknown is brilliant. So thank you so much for your generosity and your love.
My pleasure. Regards to you and your family for safety. No, you know that I love you. Hashtag man crush. I had to get rid of him before I saw any reaction to that. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. My friends, if you're joining us, we're going to go to America. So how about we have a little Independence Day flag, 50 states and lots of territories. And before we do, let me mention, my friends, please click share, share now, so you're watching this very timely episode 8 around the world. FitnessWorks Town Hall Global with one topic: systemic racism in the fitness industry. Sharing it with your classes and clients, colleagues, making sure that you get our entire recorded show for free. In the comments here, you'll see how findlawrence.com/fitnessworks takes you right to this show as soon as we're done, as well as our previous shows if you want them, like Ben's Wisdom from 2 months ago. In addition to that, it's full moon, planets are aligning, and it's Guru Day worldwide, where all these wonderful humanitarians, like our next guest, not far from Atlanta, Georgia, in a place where Black Lives Matter and systemic racism are really hot topics. Please make sure you're putting in comments, not only hashtag I was here, I'm watching from where. I want to know that you were by because you're leaving a comment. Even if you're here for a minute, please make sure you're sharing, because this time I'm checking who shared and I'm thanking those who clicked share and share now. Also, my friends, please share in your questions and your comments in our feed, which we all share because you are sharing from my timeline, what sites you are going to or what you're reading to gain inspiration from as we're going around the world and figuring out all of this stuff together with community and connection. A mover and a shaker, outdoors and indoors, definitely one to watch and one to listen to, Mr. Reggie, or Reg the Trainer, or Reginald. Reginald, hello, good evening, how are you?
Man?
Hi.
How are you doing?
I think I'm gonna
as always.
have to look at you this way.
Yeah,
that way. There you are. Yeah.
There we are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi.
Nice. This is almost a trend. It's a running joke. I always have technical difficulties, and then we're in action.
It's okay. It's better than testicle difficulties. Anyway, my friend, where are you and what time is it?
It is 7:15. I am in good old USA.
Right.
Tifton, Georgia.
Right. How do we spell that for the people who don't know Atlanta?
Tifton. I'm about 3 hours south, close to the Georgia-Florida line.
Tifton, wonderful. The first question is, with everything that's happened with Black Lives Matters and statues and protest and looting and all this stuff, what's been happening around where you are?
Atlanta has experienced a lot of looting and protesting, and Tifton is a small, close-knit community. So it hasn't been a lot of that. But what I've noticed on social media is almost a divide. I've been inspired through my friends that have spoke up and stood up about this topic, because it's been near and dear to my heart as long as I've been alive. And to see people speaking up has been a blessing. But what I've also seen is people, I guess, drawing the line in the sand, doubling down on there's no systemic racism. Slavery was over 400 years ago. Why are we having this conversation? And I really believe if you want to change, you have to be able to receive information. And I think some people, I'm very optimistic, but at the same time, you have to want to be able to receive new information in order to change. So in my area, I see a divide. Growing up in the deep South, it's heavy down here.
Okay, what is it? It's heavy down here. Racism, right?
Yes, definitely. Okay. I tell people to give them some kind of analogy or some example. when I was learning how to drive a car, right? So I'm young, I'm learning how to drive the car. One of my first lessons that my dad taught me.
Thank you for specifying that you're young, as the 60-year-old is going around the world. What are you, 20? I don't need to know. Because I'm young, sure. Okay. Like saying, because I'm black.
Well, when I was a young boy learning how to drive a vehicle, one of the first things that my dad taught me is how to get pulled over by the police. So this is a dynamic that other cultures may not understand. Right. So the it is like, I can't believe that. How could you be teaching your child how to get pulled over by the police? But from my dad's perspective, growing up in the Deep South, he had to educate his black male son on how people may feel fearful of him and how to, I guess, let those guards down just by my cadence or my verbiage. So it is a long lasting thing down here that I'm, thank God that we're finally developing another conversation towards change.
Thank you. And to complicate that, you're very open-minded and open personally about your not open relationship, but your multiracial relationship. Is that a politically correct way to say?
Yes. Okay. Ashley is near and dear to my heart, and she is Caucasian. Yeah, she is Caucasian, and I don't experience that as far as people giving me the side eye, or either I just don't acknowledge it, because that's how you feel. I'm not gonna, fight the world. I know, when I was younger, I would try to combat and convince everyone that, accept this, accept that, and it's, as you get older, you realize you just don't put energy in the things that is just unnecessary. It's not my job to convince you who I should love.
My friend Roberto says, what you say or think about, you empower and can actually make bigger. So good for you, and I applaud you for having your relationship public and for saying that even if it happens, that type of racism, you're not really sensitive to or aware of right now. For those of us who want to learn, and you're getting lots of love on our feed, by the way, I should tell you the comments are abuzz from Dion in Canada. Everyone is just loving your takeaways and loving your honesty about the driver sort of preparation and being young. By the way, maybe you should tell us that you're young. In addition to all of that, Reggie, tell us what's something I can do in my personal life to make me less racist or less biased.
I hope I'm not getting her name wrong. Connie, I think she hit it right on the head. And I think it starts with education.
Right.
I think
the teacher.
With U.S. history, there's two versions of history. There's the romanticized version of the U.S. history and the actual version. And the actual version is a very sad version because it was built off the blood of many people. And I think educating people on and just developing a conversation from a young age will help understanding. So people will not have conversations like systemic racism. What are you talking about? You already have this at a young age because racism is taught. You're not born a racist, and you can educate the youth so they'll be more knowledgeable on how to deal with different cultures. So I think education is the key.
Thank you for those 3 takeaways. By the way, Connie is still with us and she's listening to every word as well. She's a team player, and I hope she considers you for her online conventions. I understand recently you've been doing some online conventions and taking a lot of new friends and followers. And
yes.
Easy on the people who are commenting on hair and biceps and moves and energy. Not that I've been paying attention to any of that, of course. I just go by the resume and the certifications. Reggie, the big question of our show on a holiday weekend, I thank you for your time, is what can I do, or those watching, just us, in our fitness professional life to decrease systemic racism?
Well, if you look at it even from like a business or a marketing standpoint, if you have more diversity, you open yourself up to the market. If you have more Black people, if you have more Latino, Latina, more people inclusive, man, that's going to bring you so much more revenue, and that welcomes other people. So that's from a business perspective. Of course, with the marketing and the imagery, I think a lot of people have said that, and I've seen a lot of that from SCW. Even with the catalog of the classes, you'll see a lot of diversity as far as the imagery there. But just to Black people in general, to my people, I just want to say, don't wait on opportunities. Don't wait for someone to give you an opportunity. Create your own. When you add value to the marketplace speaks back. And if our marketplace is the fitness industry, I say pour your heart, your passion, your drive, your love for people and fitness into you, and the marketplace will speak back to you. So I don't wait on any opportunities at all.
I just said to my mentoring group today, my mastermind group, and you're part of that. So
Yes.
Thank you for having the same mind as I.
Definitely.
My friends, opportunity is not a lengthy visitor. Remember that.
Yes.
Opportunity is not a lengthy visitor. You got to be ready and have a backup plan. You're never going to ever take on a project and say, I'm 101% ready before I go around the world with all of yous guys. Do you think I feel I got this? I'm ready to press play. What? Are you kidding? The messages I get before I even go live would be enough if I read them now. Would be enough to disconnect my computer and worry about my own life. But I'm about to stand for what I believe in, which is what I don't know. Malcolm X said, if you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for anything.
Everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think it goes back to education. I think all young people should know who Malcolm X is, not just the glorified version of Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement, and we only discuss it on February, which is Black History Month. You know, Black history is history, and it shouldn't be celebrated on the month of February.
Thank you.
So once again, all about education.
The big question I have to ask before I let you go, that everyone is a buzz about, tell us about the pillow on the couch behind you.
Hold 1 second.
We say that everything speaks, though, my friend. Oh, you are wearing more than underwear. See, we got you to stand up.
Oh man, I would have really told on myself if I didn't be prepared. One of my amazing clients, Kristen, for Christmas, she said, you make us do squats a lot in class. So she bought me this pillow, squat goals. So I was like, great, that's going to be a part of my decor. So
oh my goodness.
That's the decor.
Thank you for speaking to that, and thank you for speaking your truth. We have some other high politicized personalities watching in from your state who couldn't be with us tonight for political reasons, although we definitely want to thank you for representing your state, for representing your race, and definitely for representing the kind in humankind. You know I'm a fan. I'm a bigger fan than ever because we've been speaking more offline in the last couple of months than we ever have. And I'm very honored that you're one of those who has said, yes, I have a conversation for you, but at all the manias in the years past, you've been in sessions, you're a sorter, you're a fighter, you're a warrior, not a worrier. And you're definitely, my friends, for those of you seeing his name, he's one to watch. He's Reg the Trainer on Facebook, he's Reg the Trainer on Instagram, and he's Reg the Trainer. He's one to follow, and he's got a site too. He's got lots of pictures on social media too. For those of you that like to scroll and just look at pictures, because I don't do any of that, of course. I just look at resumes.
And I want to show you one thing before we get out of here.
I've heard that before, but not in a public Zoom call.
I knew I opened the Pandora's box there. This is a wristband that I came up with. And if you can read it, it says, can I do more? I came up with this wristband to give you inspiration throughout the day, asking yourself, can you do more for personal development, community, your fellow man? And I think this is a perfect question that we can always ask ourselves. Can we do more? Yes, we can.
Thank you. How do we get those bracelets?
I will send you the link soon so you can get those.
Marketer. Yes. Okay. There you go. And remember, not just man, woman too, or humankind. Right. Yes. Okay. I'm so language sensitive these days, right? Like my mom and I, when we speak at 5:30 in the morning EST, she was talking about, well, I have to have more compassion for my fellow man. I said, and what about the fellow women? And she said, Well, I mean women when I say man. And the more I questioned and pushed that, I mean, she's 83 or 86, 80,
Yeah, yeah.
somewhere between 86 and death. And
Yeah.
I said, you know what? It's time to rethink those terms, like mankind. Really?
Yeah.
How about humankind? Why does it have to be that the penis overrides the? I mean, I came out of a vagina. I didn't come out of a penis. Just saying.
There you go.
But
Yeah.
that's
Well,
a whole other. That's a
human.
whole other topic of fitness work. Yeah. Thank you for the present of your wisdom. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being on holiday weekend. Thank you for showing us your bracelet and that you are wearing more than just underwear. Thank you for your
Yes.
squat goals. Thank you for standing up for us. Thank you for being full of love and light and wisdom and lots of love. Peace out.
Peace.
My friends, remember, opportunity is not a lengthy visitor. We're going to go from there. What's this flag? It's the first time you're going to see, the only time on this around the world, a combination flag. On the top is Puerto Rico. On the bottom is Mexico. So yes, we're going to have a little conversation about top and bottom. Not the conversation you might be thinking about, but around the world global town hall check-in. Hey, if you're just checking in with us now, please click share and share now so you're watching this on your feed. You can delete it when the show's done, but for now, show your commitment to our message that systemic racism has no place when fitness works around the world. I'm more emotionally connected to this topic more than ever now that I know that I'm not alone as just this white person in the wilderness in my bucket of stupid and bucket of crazy saying, teach me, I want to learn. And there are wonderful inspirational characters who are representative minorities willing to teach us and willing to say, thanks for speaking out. Not the least of which is someone I've worked with for over decades from the last century. Manuel Velázquez is joining us now all the way, he'll tell you from where. Check out that picture. Mr. Manuel Velázquez, happy Sunday, happy 4th of July weekend. I think I can hear you. We're getting you unmuted. You're coming into the Zoom room and boom! I'd recognize your set anywhere. Hi, my friend. Buenas noches.
Buenas tardes. Casi noche, pero todavía buenas tardes.
Ya, ahora vamos a hacerlo en español. Where are we finding you and what time is it?
Right now it is, what time is it? It's 4:30 here in Baja California North, South San Diego. I'm in Rancho La Puerta, Tecate, Mexico. If you fly to the San Diego airport, 25 miles south, 2 miles inside the border of Mexico, that's where I am right now.
And where are you from and why are you in Mexico?
I am originally born and raised in Puerto Rico, my beautiful island where you are right now, and I just envy you so much. And 10 years ago, thanks to opportunity and thanks to my work and collaboration with many people, and this guy which is in front of me right now, you. Well, I had the chance to. I started working in hospitality and hotel businesses, and when the thing went sour in Puerto Rico, I had the chance to connect with the kind of the mothership. I didn't know that this resort was the mothership of the resort that I was working with you for 12 years almost in Puerto Rico. And then opportunity came, opened the door, and here we are. 10 years later, I'm sitting here again with you, like not full circle, as like in a spiral, like evolving and moving forward, finding new venues, finding new roads, walking new trails, and learning new things. Yeah.
Beautiful. Full spiral. A circle means you've gone back to where you were before, and we've got to be going in a commendably forward direction. I hope you like the flags I made just for you with a little top and a little bottom. So we have Puerto Rico on the top because it's your blood and heritage, Mexico on the bottom because it's where you are, and it is definitely symbolic of just what you're representing on this show. You're very unique to our show because you are representing a minority, and there is racism against minorities in both regular, whatever regular is, life and fitness life. Because you're originally from Puerto Rico, I think it's important that people understand that when we say Puerto Ricans are Hispanics, I like to say in a unique way. Tell us about the derivations or the origin of what it really is to be Puerto Rican.
It's a blend of many elements, basically originally three. The original indigenous people, the Taínos, that were living in the island before the colonizers arrived. Then the Spaniards came and joined and blend, trying to get gold and minerals and enrich themselves. 100 years later, when the Indians, the Taino Indians, native Puerto Ricans, started dying by different sicknesses and viruses that the Europeans brought to them, then it was the first huge immersion of Western Africans in Puerto Rico. Now, originally, there is three big races: the indigenous, the Spaniards, and then now West Africans. But then 100 years later, after that, we are talking now is almost the 1800, the 1700s. Europeans start coming in, and from Italy, from Portugal, from France, from you name it. The government of Spain opened up the gate. Hey, there is land out opportunities in America. We start receiving not only West Africans who came in three big waves, but Portuguese, Italians, more Spanish, French, Irish people from the UK too, from a lot. That said, Puerto Rico became, and is right now, a big pot of many elements. And when you talk about Puerto Ricans, you will see, and it's very, very, very interesting how people, because of media, movies, and theater, they have a preconception of how Puerto Ricans should look, or they act, or they even speak.
Ricky Martin, J-Lo.
Exactly, or Mark Anthony. There you are. You have the three different. You go from the very mulatto, blended African descendant to the very fair skin, blue eyes, very Nordic.
Where you know that because you've stayed here with me in Puerto Rico, my gardener has parents and is himself as dark as the Puerto Ricans come. And Sonia, who cleans for us, with her Spanish heritage and ancestors, is whiter skinned than I am on a January day in New York. Puerto Ricans have a big melting pot, as you've said. By the way, our feed is a buzz, I have to tell you, with love from Mo Hagan, from some people in the comments saying that you're going to be their future husband. There's a little issue with that, but we won't break anybody's bubble right now. And the comments are loving the way you're sounding and looking about your Hispanic pride. And Hispanics might be a demographic that represents a minority, and there are many Puerto Ricans who are super, super dark who may then say they are Puerto Rican, but misnomed as African or Black. As a Hispanic in fitness in our industry, Manuel, have you ever found or been subject to any kind of racism in beyond Puerto Rico when you started traveling?
Well, it's been very subtle, and it's been very interesting because it is like a double sword thing. I make my impact, or I step into the fitness world, and the first thing that I was being known for was my Latin heritage. Okay, I was a Latin dance guy, and my first conference away or outside the island, it was teaching Latin dance and leading a certification for personal trainers. This is what I said in 1994, 1995. Then I was a personal trainer giving a whole weekend certification program, but at the same time, the most notable thing for them was my Latin dance class experience. Then from that point on, it was always the Latin guy we want the Latin guy. We want the Latin guy. They were not so interested in portray or take advantage of my versatility as a trainer who can teach a course for personal trainer, but for the dancing part. And on the long road, looking back to my career of almost 20 something years. I don't know. I don't want to say, oh my God, I feel so old. Anyway.
Old is not a feeling. Lonely is a feeling, but we won't go there.
I need more than this to talk about that.
2 more interviews, 2 more guests. Stay with me. Manuel, have you ever gotten this kind of feedback? Thank you for applying to our convention, but we don't need any Latin dancers.
Oh my God, yes. And actually, it happens so often. I sent to this conference in Europe. I sent to this conference wherever and around the globe. Like, it happens at least in 3 big conferences that I wanted to go because I respect the work that they do. And I submit between 10 and 15 courses. And they glare over them and say, well, I know you for dancing. I didn't know you do all this. We don't need a dance trainer. Thank you very much.
Right. Well, kudos to you because you are very versatile. Yes, you're the Latin who can move. Many don't know that you wrote a book on Latin dance and origins. So people might take big pre-choreographed or pre-formatted programs out there, but if the instructor doesn't speak, you never learn that salsa as a dance came from salsa, the food, which came from the origin of spiciness, which you dedicate a whole chapter of your book to writing. For people who want to know about your book, they can reach out to you on Manuel Velázquez, and I'm sure you're happy to make your book available to them. Ay caramba! And in addition to that salsa and the history and the culture, you are personal trainer, you are movement specialist of barefoot disciplines, you are a water specialist, you choreograph for the largest pre-choreographed that I know, Women Water in Motion, and in addition to all that, kudos and shout out to SCW, which had you first come into a convention and not only create some course materials, but had you sub for some crazy person a yoga certification and then take that certification on, and sub for a Tai Chi certification for some crazy guy and then link and take that on. And kudos to SCW for seeing you more, Manuel, more than a mambo. That could be another book, just thinking out loud. But yes, far often than not, people associate you with movement that is Latin when your culture and your wheelhouse are so much deeper and more prolific than that. For example, weren't you a gym owner in Puerto Rico for years?
Yeah, we have. Yeah, that was in my, oh my God, that was one of my past lives. Yeah. To own a facility, 5,000 square feet facility with a movement studio, spinning classes, weight room, and spa and everything. Yeah, that was a different life. Yeah, but but sometimes it's very hard to step out of the boxes that people put over you. You get noticeable for some things and people do not see. It happens a lot. I never thought that you would teach yoga. Oh, I never knew that you lead the yoga certification course for SEW. Oh my God. Yeah, then.
Yeah, or so that's what I call out as subtle racism. And I hope somebody puts in the comments in a hashtag, subtle racism, because you know what? It really is. And the other thing that I get a lot of with people from different cultures meeting in the language of ID and AFC and SEW and Campfit Pro and Good Life and all the other conventions that are out there that I can't name right now because they just don't come to my mind. What about the fact that we all meet together and present in English? Yes, AFC has translated tracks and they do Korean and Chinese and others, and kudos to them for taking on that monkey and those expenses. But the common language of fitness continuing education is English. And what's been your experience with a Hispanic from Puerto Rico going around the world teaching different countries and cultures in English?
Well, again, a double sword. It's a double sword, a double-edged sword.
Right.
I receive some people welcome, oh my God, you have a beautiful accent, or some people use that, oh, you have an accent. I cannot really understand what you're saying. And I'm like, and actually I've been using that as part of my intro. Hey, good morning, my name is Manuel Velázquez. Today we're gonna do blah, 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 blah. And if you cannot understand what I'm saying, because I sometimes speak very fast when I get excited, just raise your hand and just let me know, hey, I don't understand a piece of it, can you repeat it? Because more often than not, I get the, huh? Like, what? And I had experience for some programming companies. They in advance talk to me like, hey, your accent, we have comment about your accent and blah, blah, blah. And it's a very interesting, great place to be, because in a way, devaluate what can I offer or the message, because my accent. Then if we look over, we all have accents from North America, the East Coast of North America, to the South Coast, to the West Coast, we all have a different flair. And maybe some people say, well, your accent is very thick. Okay, what does that mean? Ketchup? I don't get it.
Exactly. You know, I was just watching for those people watching YouTube a lot lately, more than normal. Jennifer Aniston was just doing an interview with the cast reunion, all these Zoom reunions over the years now during COVID in the last 4 months, and she was talking about the cast of Friends, known the world over, had vocal coaches, although they all were neighbors or roommates in the place in New York. They all had vocal coaches on the show Friends, how Joey could keep his Italian New York accent when he spoke English, and how Smelly Cat's singer, Lisa Kudrow, when she would sing, had to go into a different accent for her character. Sure, the language of Friends was English, but the vocal coaching on their accents made some of the success and the humor possible of Friends. Yet no one said, I don't really get his accent. We all have accents. Where would Sofia Vergara today be of Modern Family without her accent, whether it's real or not, right? Where would Charo of Love Boat, of all the Jerry Lewis telethon fame be today if Charo didn't have her accent? She got a lot of flack for it over the years, and people accused her of putting on a thicker accent than it was, but we have actually collaborated on some stuff together, going to do some Atlantis cruises, and when we've been on flights going to pick up the ship in Athens or something, we've had many conversations in English and Spanish. Her accent is who she is, and who would Charo be without the way she speaks? The way you speak is who you are. The last thing I want to say is I've been privileged to listen to you speak on live webinars now in COVID more than ever. And I was really insulted, I don't know how you felt, when you were answering on a panel and the panelist actually said, thank you for answering. Now can you answer in English? And you had just been answering in English. I thought that, well, it doesn't matter what I thought. I was very surprised by that comment.
And sometimes it's like you have to breathe deeply, take a moment, rethink, because if we want to create change, we cannot be reactive. We need to be receptive. And probably that comment came from a place that, with no judgment. I don't want to make judgment, but it didn't come from a place that it was the best place.
Right.
And as Jay says, we all have biases. Well, and
Sure.
Dion says we need to open a conversation. This is a great time to step back a little bit and then look over what we've been doing and how we've been doing things, and open conversations for.
Even Puerto Ricans might have biases against their own culture. Remember the census of 2004?
Oh my God! In 2000 and 2004. 80% of the population, Puerto Ricans, Puerto Ricans in the island, 80% of the Puerto Ricans living in the island consider themselves white, which for me is a mystery. Looking back, and this is very important. Like I love the Dion presentation today. If we do not connect, or we don't learn from our history, from our past, we're doomed to keep committing the same mistakes and the same error. We're not going to learn. We cannot.
Mic drop. Yes.
We cannot solve any problem. We need to sit back, look our biases, realize, like, and there is, I'm gonna bring something here. I was listening to the NPR the other day, and
You listen to NPR?
Well, I'm living in this facility right now. Okay, for those of you who doesn't know, I'm living in a resort. There's only 5 employees for 5,000 acres of land, 14 studios, 5 pools, and it's empty. There is no people here except 5 of us, and we are just like, okay.
Okay, our time is near ending, although everyone in the chat feed wants to stay with you. We're going to be moving on to the United States from Mexico. What do you want to read us? And then go into, please, what's our takeaway of how we can, from your perspective, reduce fitness-based systemic racism?
But that's perfect. This is a perfect segue. I was listening to the NPR the other day, and there's this guy, Travis Jones, and he was quoting James Baldwin saying, and I'm going to try to read it because I don't want to misquote him or get in trouble saying the wrong thing.
Is it very long?
No, it's just very short. Our identities are like clothing that we wear to cover the nakedness of ourselves. That said, trust in one's nakedness is all that gives one the power to change one's robes. We wear races in different ways. It's not until you, as Jay said, look into your biases and realize that, yes, there are things that I cannot change my race, the upbringing, where I geographically was raised. Those are pre-existing conditions that I need to work with. But stepping back a little bit, taking the steps to connect, understand, and somehow be open to the conversation without fear, because fear is what makes our biases very hard to work with, and what makes basically the racism, the bullies of racism taking us down, the fear of the unknown, the fear of the different, the fear of, I don't understand that person, not caring, but stepping back and carrying the road for improvement or for a successful, maybe in the future, successful change.
Thank you. Would you like to add anything else? Because that's a great thing to finish on, or any other tips. I don't want to rob you of your time. Yes, I'm giving you a little extra time tonight because it's just not fair, but it's true. You're my only Hispanic, and I think it's important that we look at your view of the racism you've experienced, as you said, subtly over the years, as you're booked as the Latin dancer, and there's so much more. Any other things that we could think about to add, Manuel?
And I learned this from a guy who wrote a yoga book, a Tai Chi book, and some other books that I've been using lately. But there's one quote from that yoga book who says, when you open your mind and you open your heart, you let change happen. Flexibility comes not from the muscles. Flexibility is a byproduct of your heart open and your mind opened.
Oh my God, who is that? I need to marry that person. My God.
And I love that quote because in this time that we are living, in this era that we are living, that we are so fearful of the unknown for the COVID, unknown for the Black Lives Matter, unknown for violence, unknown for many things. It's hard to say, let's open heart, let's open mind, but there's no other way. And I'm gonna sound like a cliche, but at the same time, love is the answer, and love only comes from the heart. I agree. To think about that.
I agree with you. I realized recently that not all the things we face we can change, but we can't change anything until we face it. So we face things not with this, but with this. with our open heart. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks for logging on earlier in the day. Your happy hour starts now, all the way from Mexico. We're going to contact you to get your book, Ay Caramba, The True Science and Cultural Derivations of Latin Dance, as well as stay connected with you on Instagram and Facebook. And now, the new discovery. Listen, Manuel, have you ever heard of something called TikTok?
Oh my God,
Bye, TikTok Manuel. Bye. You need to follow him on TikTok. Thank God it shares to Insta and Facebook because, oh my goodness. My friends, if you're just joining us as we're going to go to Colorado, I believe, in the United States, please click share now, so you are part of our solution, not just our conversation, to pose compassion, curiosity across continents and countries. My friends, please give us a comment. Hashtag I was here. That's all one word, right? And then watching from and where you're watching from. And in the comments, you'll see how to get this whole show emailed to you to share to your leaders, colleagues, comrades, and everyone in between, right? At findlawrence.com/fitnessworks. In Colorado, I believe, we're going to see, just featured yesterday on the news, someone I've been collaborating a lot with lately, Kia Williams, on, I think, Kia, hello?
Hi, how
Are you in Colorado?
I am in Colorado.
Oh, I'm so excited that I got the right place. There's our flag in your honor. You were on the news yesterday.
Yeah, a few days ago. Yeah,
you were doing your flexibility and you were doing your inclusive languaging. Where are you now and what time is it?
I am Denver, Colorado. It is 5:51 p.m. my time.
Thank you. Tell us, because I want to spend time on your wisdom, the short version of what's happened out in public in the last couple of weeks based on the news. Cops, statues, riots, peaceful marches.
Yeah. What's happening here in Colorado is not much different from what we're witnessing across the country. There's protesting, there's unrest, there's also heightened awareness and activism. There's more education and healthy, progressive interpersonal exchanges happening. And it's very victorious to observe the outright rejection of bigotry. So that's what we're seeing in Colorado. There's a rise of a fundamental understanding that racism is a threat to democracy. Go figure, duh. And it is a threat to the sustainability of any nation. There's been more calls to action, which I love seeing, being a part of, and people witnessing that it's not enough to sit back and say, oh, that's a shame that that's happening to those people. Because we recognize that what's happening to our people is our business. And it's not enough to no longer just not be racist. You gotta be anti-racist at this point in time. And that means standing against institutional racism, which is unfair policies, the way that policies are enforced, and discriminatory actions and bias practices, and the intent to treat racial groups unequally. And then also a lot of people are standing up against structural racism, which has been a disadvantage and disenfranchised Black people and people of color for hundreds and thousands of years, and given privilege or preferential treatment to white people. So we witness that there's an urgency to vote, an urgency to elevate the voices of the underrepresented and the oppressed. I don't live very far from where the young man Elijah McClain was murdered by police last year in a nearby city. And that's very frustrating. But it is encouraging that we're seeing the elders and the youngsters rise up and say, no more, absolutely no more. You messed up and we're holding you accountable for that. So there's a lot of progression happening where I am in Colorado.
You are buzzing our comment feed. You've got Reggie saying shout out to you. You've got people saying congratulations for being in the news and being an activist and saying your truth. You know, I think activism in my way, as I do my activism from my Zoom room, whatever we're doing, I think is some way of activism. I think activism is sort of our rent for being on the planet right now. And kudos to you for buzzing our comment feed. So thank you for that, just by your presence. As you've, sir, oh my goodness. So Reggie's young.
I'm from the South. I'm from the South. That's just what we do. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I like politeness. I love that,
It's a term of
ma'am.
endearment, okay? Yes, ma'am.
Kia, we want to start with ourselves. Give me a practical tip. Take a few moments and tell me, before we talk about our fitness world, what can I do in my personal life to decrease my biases and systemic racism?
Okay. What you are doing now, making conscious effort to do better, to do more, to get educated, and to hear directly from the mouths of the people who you want to be educated from and who you want to know more about. That, in my opinion, that's complete immersion. Yeah. And you don't have to travel far. You don't have to travel abroad to do that. You can step out your doors and perhaps it's your next door neighbor who you can have over for dinner. I'm an advocate for developing brave spaces, and I'm very intentional of calling it brave spaces because unfortunately we can't guarantee a safe space, but a brave space for working with diverse populations and not censoring people's voices or telling them how to respond or how to react or how to feel, especially when we're talking about racial and emotional trauma. We want to hold ourselves back from that because that's none of our business. We shouldn't do that. And not getting distracted. And when people do talk to me and they want to tell me all about the sensationalized stories that they're seeing in the media, I try to politely redirect the conversation to the focus, the reason that we are experiencing what we are experiencing. You know, we don't tell people how to respond to their emotional trauma, to their racial
Right.
trauma. We address what has brought them or us to that point. So we
Thank
are
you
in
for that. We're
desperate
getting some
need.
comments. We're
Yeah,
getting some comments that it's not enough just to say I'm not racist, but to be positively anti-racist.
anti-racist.
Right.
Absolutely. There's a desperate need of a systematic overhaul, and that's all of our responsibility. All of
Moving
ours.
on to our fitness world, you're a master trainer for many companies.
Yeah.
You've got bar, you've got barefoot, you've got queuing, you've got some aggressive, you got some mindful. You've been doing this for a while. I
Yeah.
think you're an impeccable cure as an aside. For our
Thanks.
fitness world, there is systemic racism in some places more than others. Can you suggest some ways that we can diminish that?
Absolutely. More representation and accessibility up for all of our wonderful fitness services and opportunities so that more people, a more diverse group of people can engage with us, and challenging the standardization of certifications, the expense of what it is, what it takes to be involved in fitness. Lawrence, I would love, and this may be a shot in the dark, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I'm going to take my shot right now. All right. I'd love to see us make fitness service or encourage fitness service providers to go through continuing education courses that's based on sensitivity training, de-escalation, and diversity training, and make those requirements for all certifications and licenses.
Great call to action. Can you give me one practical takeaway that you would hope I would come out of that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hour online training? I learned that.
That I have the tools that I need to feel successful and intentionally be inclusive and tolerate people who don't have likeness like mine. Yeah.
Great. Sensitivity training, and you called it a few other things as well, because different companies are starting things and they're calling them different things. But I like that you had a couple different titles. Can you say them one more time? Your
Sure,
call to action?
sensitivity, yes, sensitivity training, de-escalation, and diversity training.
Thank you very much. I agree. We will make groundwork if we start with heart work.
Yes, sir.
If we connect us here on our humankind and keep the kind in humankind, not just mankind, as my mom was talking about it this morning, I think it's important. Give us some more practical tips if you have any more before you leave with your wisdom
Sure.
for
Check, and
fitness.
I've heard other speakers discuss this as well. Check your implicit biases. Be more aware of that because we all have blinders, but it's our responsibility to drop those blinders and to just allow yourself to be vulnerable and not so perfect all the time. It's all right to flub up as long as you have the intention of making right.
Exactly. And be able to say, I'm sorry. I've apologized for more things in the last 5 months than I have my entire life. But when you say, I'm sorry, or when you say, I apologize for, it's more about getting to a better place than really an admission of guilt.
Right. So let your behaviors reflect that positive sorry so that we can
Thank you.
finally move forward.
I
Thank
think
you,
our
Lawrence.
fitness industry has a lot to gain from, and when we friend and follow you, we get practical tips just by listening to the language you used when you were on the news as a takeaway, and all the things you do when you're teaching and Zooming, and now really public speaker in demand, so you're hashtag one to watch. Thank you for the present of your wisdom. I really appreciate you being with us in this very candid way to give us practical takeaways about how we can decrease racism from a personal but also a physical business, right? Do you any other concluding remarks as a takeaway you might want to give us?
Sure. I think that I've heard you ask others, what do they think about what's happening right now? I think that is necessary, what we're seeing happening right now, because people have been overlooked. And in our industry of the fitness industry, that has to do with people's colors and their abilities, or what's considered a disability, their shapes and sizes. So can we do better? As Reggie also asked on his bracelet, absolutely, yes, we can do better. And that's something that I have asked myself for the past 10 years probably, and everyone who has reported to me, whoever I've had the pleasure of supervising. In every action and everything that we develop, we always ask ourselves, can we do better? And the answer is always yes. We try really, really hard not to make people feel passed off. We want everyone to be seen, to feel heard and recognized, because that's what people deserve. I feel like I'm put on this planet. My purpose-driven life is to pay it forward. I'm still trying to discover what it is, but I think it's just filling up other people's cups, putting back into the atmosphere the good things that's been instilled in me that other people have offered to me. So I would like to see more of that. I really would.
Thank you. Thank you for your wisdom. And I love the way you put with the metaphor and analogy of your cup. I love your word choices. I love who you are. I love what you're standing for, and I love what you're standing below. Thank you very, very much for the present of your wisdom, for joining us, for saying we can always do more, and for keeping us on our morally invested toes, because it's important.
It is. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kia. Follow Kia Williams, my friends. She's one to watch more than ever. Bye-bye. Peace out. Yay. Okay, my friends, now to the other side of the world. What? The other side of the world? Where are we going? Guess what? It's really hard to go there now because like two-week incubation or quarantine period going and coming, etc. Here is the flag, and we're going to go to Monday morning in Asia, patiently waiting for us. If you're just joining us, this is your last call to action, please. Hashtag I was here, plus tell us where you're watching from. Number 2, please click share and share now. I'm following, I'm friending, I'm thanking those who have shared our message of anti-racism in our personal lives and in our fitness. Systematic racism on the downhill, I hope, doing our part here. And number 3, findlawrence.com/fitnessworks will get you this entire show to share with your friends and colleagues who had something better to do on this Sunday or Monday than join us. A mover and a shaker in the fitness industry with a huge vision to create single-handedly and put together a team, the first major fitness convention connecting all fitness tribes in Asian countries and beyond. Dr. Suzanne Hosley created Asia Fitness Convention, now known as Asia Fit, coming to join us. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Hi, I'm awesome and I'm grateful. I'm thrilled to be seeing you because we speak a lot, but I don't always get to see you. It's always crazy times. Where are you and what time is it?
I'm in Bangkok and it's 7 o'clock in the morning.
And are you at home or are you at Fit?
I'm at home. Today's a public holiday. It's a Buddhist holiday today.
Oh, I love those Buddhist holidays on Mondays. Yay.
Yes, so do we.
Suzanne, tell me, with the Black Lives Movement, Black Lives Matter, and the systemic racism and all the talks we've been having, you've been watching the news, you are Canadian, you're connected to all the English-speaking news stories around the world. What's going on in Thailand, if anything at all, as a result of our news of statues and cops in the news and the political and quiet riots?
That's an interesting question. Actually, there's not that much going on here in
Right.
relation to that. I think the focus here is the coronavirus, and that's what everyone has been totally sucked into for the last 4 months. And we're reopening, thank God, thank God.
Yeah.
We have reopened, and we've had 42 days of 0 local transmissions. So we're kind of in the clear until you guys start coming. And then we're a little bit worried about what's going to happen.
Well, you've postponed the October event
We
to
had
Easter weekend of April.
Yeah,
So
we
I
had to
think
do that.
by then we should be safe to have our Fitness Global 2021 party in Bangkok, Thailand. I'm
We hope
glad
so.
I'm glad you're slowly opening. I'm glad your Fit 5 level training academy gym. You import so much education and certification standards, and people in all countries. If there's no, like, there's a Fit Philippines, but if there's no Fit in their countries, they're coming to you for their education and certifications. Thank you for raising the standards where they're going. You have another bent talking about systemic racism. It exists, although not
Yep.
considering people of African descent. There's another kind of racism that on an international show discussing systemic racism on a global open our mind mentality, we need to talk about in here. Tell us what it's about, Suzanne.
Well, I think racism, unfortunately, is universal. And it manifests itself in very different ways in different countries and different cultures. Black Lives Matter is steeped in American history. And so it means so much over there. And I'm sad to see it still happening because I'm old enough that I was listening and I was watching Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and the black fist pumps in the Mexican Olympics in 1968. I remember all of that. And to see that we're still there makes me very sad. But back to your question, not relating to North America, in Asia, there's tons of racism as well. You've got the ethnic Koreans in Japan who are not considered subpar. You've got the caste system in India that classifies people based on who they were born to. In Thailand, there's racism. A number of Thais call ethnic Indians kek, which is a derogatory term. Might not be as bad as the N-word, but it's a derogatory term. And it exists anywhere. It exists for us white people in Asia. We are looked at differently. And generally, we're well treated. But right now, with the coronavirus, we're not allowed on buses going out of state because we're dirty.
Talk about not even being told you have to go to the back of the bus. You're not even
No,
allowed
we're not
on
allowed
the bus because you're white.
We're not allowed on the bus.
Fascinating. So all
because
my
we're not
viewers,
Thai.
yeah, so my viewers need to know there's racism all over the world in ways we cannot even imagine if we just keep
Unfortunately.
our laser focus. We have to have an open-minded focus that unbiased, it's just everywhere, right?
It's hard to do. It's a really hard thing to do. I think we need to just, as a number of your speakers have said, we just need to be self-aware. And we need to be, whenever we meet someone who doesn't look like us, we need to be aware of our reactions.
Right. And like Manuel was saying, for Puerto Ricans, they go from very, very dark skin to very, very white. Does that also happen in Thai society?
Sure. We've got ethnic Chinese Thais, and we've got ethnic Thai Thais, and then we have the mountain tribe Thais, and they all look at each other differently. And
And then there are the Indians that
exists.
might come in very dark that are already then based on their skin color, put into certain jobs, or discriminated against. Then there are we white people that might come in to work or live or start a fitness educational empire as you have. You've raised the standards around the country, so I'm sure they revere you more than they are racist against you, I hope. Have you found personally?
They don't revere me, no, but
they should. We do.
We have a good time.
Have you found any racism wherever you've gone as Canadian white girl? In Thailand?
In Thailand, it's not so much racism as it is, well, I suppose it is racism. If you're a foreigner, wherever you are a foreigner, you're different. And sometimes that's good and sometimes it's bad. Sometimes you get privileges that you shouldn't get. And sometimes you're not allowed on the bus.
Right. That is just fascinating. You program conventions, you bring in a melting pot once yearly, this year postponed, not canceled, to all of Asia, all the way from Russia down to Australia and everywhere in between, as well as you have American and Canadian and Caribbean presenters, European. You have the fitness party of the Asian market and beyond. With the glasses that you put on for that kind of programming, can you give us some tips about, for our personal lives or our fitness lives, ways to decrease these systemic biases or systemic racism to help be part of the solution?
Again, as so many of your people have said so far, it's
my
just
people.
Your people, the people that you brought in today, your people. It's about being self-aware and being open and accepting and curious. And I think if we speak and talk and experience and share, then those things fall away. But
that's
it
important.
Takes time and it takes self-awareness.
Thank you. I've always said
that we're not perfect.
We're not. Like Petra Kolber's book, Perfection Detox. If you're waiting to be perfect, you're going to wait a long time. And number two, when you think you are, no one can relate to perfectionism because who is perfect? I tell the people that I mentor all the time that it's important to try to do something, and remember that food inside the package can't read its own label. So we got to talk to the people around us and say, how could I be more diverse? How could I be more diverse in the way I offer applications, that I encourage people of different ethnicities to apply, and let people know that everybody has a fair chance based on your qualification and who's the best person for
the resume. It's the resume.
Right. Right. I agree. And thank you for talking about that bus situation, because I think it's so fascinating to hear that the whites are not allowed on the bus.
No, well, we had yes, never mind. Generally speaking, we don't have a major issue, but that is one. One of my staff members is married to a German.
I know.
They wanted to go, well, you know who is. He's a regular attendee at AFC.
At AFC.
He's come every year.
Mr.
And
GR.
he's not allowed on the bus.
And his wife is on the bus, and he's not even allowed in the back.
No, well, they're not allowed. So they couldn't go up country because he can't get on the bus.
Fascinating. Fascinating.
Sad. It's sad.
Yeah.
It's
What's
just
the solution? Education? You think that will change the more we talk about it?
Yes, people talk about education, and it is about education. But the problem, and I think one of the reasons it's so systemic, is it's not education from school. It's education at home.
True.
And if your
sometimes
parents
the
are
worst
biased,
place to get it.
Yes, if your parents are biased, if your grandparents are biased, if everyone around you is biased, then you don't even know that you're absorbing that, and it just becomes you. So sure, you can educate at school, but how do you educate parents to open their kids' minds? It's really difficult. I was raised half French Catholic, half English Protestant in Quebec back in the days when that was not acceptable. My parents were not allowed to get married. Right. They broke off their engagement 3 times. And someone was saying, I think it was Manuel was talking about history. There's different histories. Well, my cousins went to English school. Yeah. My cousins went to English school. I went to French school. Our heroes were their villains, and their villains were our heroes.
In Canada.
In Canada. in Canada. So the Iroquois were the bad guys for us, and the Hurons were the good guys. But in English history, the same family in the same city, it was the reverse. So I learned very young that you cannot believe what you read, that there are many different versions of reality based on who you are and where you've been. So I think it's really important to accept that your reality is not the only reality, and be open to other realities.
Thank you for sharing the story about racism in Thailand, the untold story. Thank you for telling about that heroes and villains from the upbringing and Canadian perspective. It's so wonderful to finish this around the world as our last guest with these things that we would never think about. By now we've heard Black Lives Matter. Dion has told us that's only one division of one movement, but racism and our biases are ubiquitous, and we have to be aware of them first. It is a pandemic. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Any more practical suggestions? I know those questions that put us on the spot sometimes are like, I know it's education. You say education starting at home, and you programming your events. You have the best person for the discipline, for the track at hand, and you accept applications like Mo Hagan was saying for CanFit Pro from people all over the world, letting people know that everyone has a fair chance based on what you look like on paper, not what you look like on your headshot, because you don't even request headshots when people apply. I mean, I think it's wonderful that you look at what people can bring to the AFC party. And I think that's something that we all have to...
It's not just qualifications, it's also going back to heart.
Right.
We choose people who work well with people and who are open to our very diverse group of
Shout out to Tony Stone.
30 countries.
We
need people who are open to all of them.
Not that you ever play favorites or would ever say something like, well, he always has a place here at AFC, Mr. Tony Stone. You would never say something like that. But the fact that some presenters come and have team spirit, open hearts, and say, count on me for this little thing, compensated or not, shoots them to the top of your list because it's heart that you're talking about. And the fact that they might be black or white or yellow or Asian or Canadian, you know what? That's secondary. So good for you for always being the heart player before the color player. Because some people, as we've heard from some of our participants tonight, have been put on magazines and put in advertising and sort of pimped out based on their color for marketing. And that's just sad and sickening.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Thank you for your wisdom. You're off to work now. Are you going to work from home?
What is holiday?
I know it's a holiday.
Off to the
You're
temple.
a workaholic. You're a workaholic. Off to temple?
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. Is it happy hour yet on a working Monday at
No alcohol sales. No alcohol sales this weekend because of Buddhist holiday.
Listen, if you go to Uncle Tom and you ask for a hot tea in the ceramic cup, in the pot comes cold white wine. Just saying, you didn't hear it from me. Thank you for the gift of your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thanks for doing what you do, Lawrence.
You're kind. Thank you for being with us on your day off to share with us the untold side, the less politicized version of racism in non-traditional formats. Thank you very much, Suzanne. You know that I love you.
Love you too. Take care.
Bye. Okay, my friends, this brings us back to the United States. Boom! Right here in the United States, in a territory where I'm coming from, Puerto Rico. I'd like to say I thank you for the gift of your time, for the present of sharing with an open-minded growth mentality all the things that we've put together tonight. I said a little prayer. I said, I don't really have to worry about the show, because if you surround yourself by people who are smarter than you, you're bound for success. I'm stupid, and I'm in this to learn and grow and say, I made mistakes and I'll still make mistakes, but I'm going to work on solutions, because opportunity is not a lengthy visitor. for full moon, for coincidence of planets, for our halfway mark of 2020, and for International Guru Day, bringing light, gu, to darkness, ru. I'm Lawrence, expressing my gratitude to each and every one of you for being with us. I hope you've made at least one comment. I hope you have shared. I hope when I check our shares that we have the biggest number of shares, because yes, COVID is a huge topic of 7 shows, of over 150 presenters, of over 5 months, and of over 50 hours. Systemic racism as a narrow 3-hour divided topic is something close to my heart, and I wasn't sure how I would rise to this occasion by putting together an invitation list. I will say this, that I am very much, those of you who know me, connected to tea. I'm a teologist. I grow it, I ferment it, I bag it, and I travel with it. Where's he going with this? I am very much like a tea bag. You'll never know how strong I really am until you put me in hot water. So just test me. I surround myself with people who can talk and walk and speak to this topic, regardless of the color of their skin. findlawrence.com/fitnessworks. You'll get this whole show, as well as all of our FitnessWorks endeavors. FitnessWorks around the world, whether you're a consumer or whether you're a professional. And fitness doesn't work for free. With love in my heart and a firm commitment to spread wellness without walls around the world through my promise, flawed as it is, of diversity and inclusion, I thank all my guests with heart, and I thank you for listening, for commenting, most importantly for sharing our humankind experience, our humanity. Together, we've lived, probably, if you're watching this, the turn of the century, the flood of 72, the first international leakage of fuel that was nuclear, the 3 Mile Island thing, gay marriage, September 11, and COVID. None of that compares to what we've done to some people and made them feel less than human. For diseases come and go. Human hearts are the same. Because if you want to look at a skeleton, it's going to look the same when you take away the skin color and the profession and the income and, yes, his or her story of the past. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being here. Remember, it's never, whenever you're watching this, too late to click share and share now. A day, a week, a month after this broadcast. This is but a teaser for 2 weeks from now, when you're going to see a reinvented use of this platform that I have spent a long time creating. Not betraying your follow and friendship, enhancing your follow and friendship. Stay tuned. How's that for a teaser? What? Peace out. Happy full moon. Bye.